Chair calls to order public hearing for Bill 26010, LoSAP Amendment, Length of Service Award Program benefits. I'm going to go ahead and do the presentation on this. First of all, I want to thank our firefighters for being here tonight. I want to thank them for everything they do for our community. I threw a couple notes down here, and I just said our community members and volunteers have been coming to our aid in time of need for fire, literally as far back as we can document. From bucket brigades, horse-drawn carts, to modern-day apparatus, $1.5 million engines, $2.5 million aerial units, the personal gear, $5,000 a piece, and the technology that they need today to keep them safe. They continue to volunteer their time for us, protecting or saving our lives and property every day. Our volunteers continue to be the backbone of our fire service. Harford County's Length of Service Award Program was established in 1975. It's to find a small way to recognize and give back to our volunteers for the critical service they provide. I've had the honor and privilege to amend this program twice, working with Chief Hurst, the Harford County Volunteer Fire and EMS Association, and others. In 2020, we did one amendment, and in 2022, we did a second amendment to enhance the program, making it more beneficial to the volunteers while providing a valuable tool to enhance our recruitment and retention efforts. We know that it's cost us now, what it costs us now for a paid EMS service with 17 units on the road and 17 units in waiting if we need them. The challenges that we face in trying to find personnel to service those units. Mr. Overbay's here tonight. I'm sure he could attest to that. And retaining those positions. To date, we're budgeted about $60 million annually for our EMS service. The county treasury has shown last year there was a balance in the Volunteer Firefighters Trust LoSAP Fund of over $47 million, up from $39 million in 2022. It continues to grow while paying 788 payees in the system. The legislation will change the monthly benefit for these dedicated volunteers from $325 a month to $375. As I said, the county auditor's fiscal note shows the 788 payees in the system, and this bill will cost the county an additional $550,000 annually, with a total investment of about $2 million a year for our firefighters LoSAP program. We also know that if we are forced to go to a full-time paid fire service, the first year will be well over $200 million. And I hate to talk about the cost that they're saving us, but it's real. Seeing the success that we've had with a blend, and Chief Cubby can talk about that, a blend of career people with volunteers at Abington at the new station there, with paid drivers and firefighters. It's extremely successful. This has helped with reducing response times, again, ultimately helping to save lives and property. I want to thank all of my colleagues for co-sponsoring this legislation, and we believe it's a necessary step to maintain and extend our volunteer fire base, and it helps to keep it alive and benefit to all of us. So with that, Council, Mr. Jan Giordano.
Thank you, Council President. So I agree with everything Council President said, and then some. I think, I met some young firefighters over the past, 7 or 8 years, and they all say they go down to PG County and some of the other counties, they work down there full time, but then they come back up here and they work here. They come back because this is where they got their start. A lot of them still live up this way, but they go down there and they stay down there and they work. But the camaraderie that they have up here and what they learned up here, it's invaluable. I can't thank the fire departments enough for what they do. We know this is a small amount, and I know we've looked at increasing it, and then there's some concerns if you go over too much of how that affects you guys. So, we're always looking at ways to help support you guys, and like you said, now some of the drivers and everything are paid in the hybrid, and we know it would cost a significant amount of money to start off, probably, not only that, because just what happened with EMS, we had to replace a lot of the fire ambulances because they weren't up to par, and I've heard that to order a fire truck, it's like some 36 months out to get a fire truck, and they're probably $2 million a piece, so that's not cheap. So just want to say we appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Look forward to totally support this bill, and thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here.
Mr. Bennett?
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight, and a special thank you to all of our volunteer firefighters for all they do every single day. I hope the community truly recognizes what a value our volunteer system is here in Harford County. Even if you never have to be the one to call 911, the amount of money that we save on insurance for our homes, thanks to having a well-staffed volunteer service here in the county, is tremendous. And I know that's something that Chief Hurst often speaks to, the value that, in Havre de Grace, having an ISO Class 1 fire company brings to our community. And it's so important that these people who give up their weeknights and their weekends, their little bit of free time they have to be with friends and family, that they give up 25 years. That's to get the full benefits of this program, is 25 years of volunteering for $375 a month. No one's doing it to get wealthy. If they are, it's a very bad plan. But in order to give people that thing at the end to keep them going at 21, 22 years, to keep our volunteers in the program, I just think is incredibly valuable. I was concerned hearing from multiple firefighters in the community at a recent meeting with the county treasurer representing the administration, and talking about this bill. The county treasurer emphasized over and over again in the meeting, every dollar we spend somewhere has to be taken from somewhere else. This bill, which gives an extra $50 per eligible beneficiary, will cost about $550,000 annually. What was the meaning of the county treasurer saying that, representing the administration in that meeting, that every dollar given has to be taken from somewhere else? And I'm asking that to Mr. Overbay, because he's the representation of the administration here tonight.
Mr. Overbay?
Having not been here to comment on this bill, and I wasn't at the meeting, I certainly can't speak to what Mr. Sandless was addressing with the council at that time. Certainly something I'd be happy to bring back to you, sir, as part of follow-up with council.
Because I just think it's important to emphasize to the administration that we have to keep our volunteers strong. We also have to be planning for the future to be able to pay for and fund a career system or a hybrid system. And we're not there yet, but in order to have the runway to get there, we have to commit to supporting our volunteers. And any sort of action that would threaten to cut funding from our volunteers is unacceptable in that long-term vision of taking care of our community. So I really wanted to emphasize that in support of our volunteers tonight, that funding this does not mean taking from those people who serve us each and every day. And if something was to happen to your home while we're sitting here, would service you right now. So I just think that's very important to emphasize tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Anyone else? Ms. Imhoff?
I just, again, want to thank all of our volunteer firefighters and EMS crew. I've been very well connected with the Folston Fire Company, honestly, my entire adult life. My dad's a volunteer over there as well, and a couple of years ago, we were able to donate a house to use as a controlled burn. And if anyone has ever been able to watch you guys do what you do, it is remarkable. I was able to share that experience and being able to show my girls the amount of bravery and dedication that you guys put forth, and being able to learn the best practices to be able to make sure that you save people that you've never even met before. And so for that, I just want to say thank you, and that I will always support whatever you guys need.
Thank you, Ms. Imhoff. Anyone else? Ms. Robert?
Thank you. And I too would like to thank you for your service. I know in my jurisdiction, I rely a lot on volunteers. I have the Joppa community and the Edgewood community, and I will be power walking through the streets, and I can see the firemen waiting for the volunteers to show up to go make that run. So I really appreciate everything you do for our community, and you guys are pretty quick. And I've watched it happen recently. We did have a fire in our area, so thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the administration, because what they did is they put $1 million in for Whiteford Firehouse. So I know that's at their, that's in Mr. Casley's heart. And also, as I was looking up these 3 helmets here, I'm trying to figure out which one is Ed Watkins. And I thought maybe it would probably been the cleanest one there. But you can correct me when I'm wrong. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Mr. Giangiordano?
Yeah, one more thing. 30 years ago, I started working with ISO and those ISO codes, and they always talked about Harford County having some of the best volunteer fire departments and have some of the ISO ratings that were better than some of the paid firefighters areas around the state. And that does certainly translate into premiums on your homeowners being less. So thankfully, we've always been able to keep and maintain a lot of those, from Harvard to Grade 7 and 1, 3 and 5 in Bel Air. And they used to do things a little bit different back then. And if you could see 10 homes, and they would also credit that. So we're lucky to have you guys and your dedication in the long run. And it's people don't realize the amount of money that you guys have saved them over the last 35 years, but I know it's a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. And I think because the room is full, and a lot of you probably are not familiar with how these fire companies work when they respond to calls. Tonight I just have Level, Bel Air, and Susquehanna Hose Company here in front of me. But doesn't matter if there's a call in Joppatown, it's not unfamiliar to see a Bel Air truck there, a Susquehanna Hose truck there. If there's a call up in Whiteford or Norrisville, same. These guys run wherever they need backup and fill in. So I want to thank you for that, but you're going to hear from some of our dedicated firefighters next. We have anyone signed up?
We got 4.
Want to call you first speaker?
Christopher Gibbons, followed by Scotty Hurst.
Keep it clean, keep it clean.
Apologize, I didn't dress as snappily as Mr. Hurst did, but I did come from work. So,
Can I have your name and zip code, please?
Christopher Gibbons, Forest Hill 21050.
Thank you, sir.
Currently the president of the Falston Volunteer Fire and Ambulance Company for my 20th year. Council President Vincenti and distinguished council members. On Monday, May the 1st of 1989, 37 years ago, as a 16-year-old high school student, my application was read in to become a volunteer member of the Falston Volunteer Fire and Ambulance Company. One of the benefits explained to me was LoSAP. I was an eager kid ready to go on calls and take classes. All I remember about LoSAP was the old guys around the table talking about their monthly check and how it was a car payment. The base pay to a volunteer who had accrued 50 points in calls, meetings, training, and other categories combined in that year for 25 active years, and the age of 55 was given $300. In 2007, the council approved the addition of a death benefit for surviving spouse of 50% of that benefit. And as you had taken some of my thunder, in 2020, you guys approved as a council a raise of the base rate from $300 to $325 to a maximum benefit of $475, with $6 added for every additional year over 25 years. $6 a year. In 2022, again, the council approved and lowered the age to collect from 55 to 50 with 25 years of service. And there is also a benefit for people that join later in life that at that time was 70 years old and 10 years of credited service. They received a partial benefit. They lowered that age to 60 in 10 years. So we greatly appreciate all of that. This is really the first time that I've paid any attention, because when you lowered the age, that's when I actually was eligible to accept that benefit. But in 2023, this was no longer a car payment, more likely a fuel bill or a BG&E bill. I and many other volunteers are grateful for the allotment provided, and believe me, I didn't join at 16 with the thought of making an extra $300 some 39 years later. I joined because I've always wanted to be a volunteer fireman, and am one of the small groups that have actually stayed and remained very active responding to calls, as well as handling the myriad of tasks and activities required, training, fundraising, building and equipment maintenance, and just ready for calls. I urge the council to support, and it certainly sounds like I really don't need to do that, the raising of the base from 325 to 375, as this is now more of a retention tool for us. With the rising costs of everything, keeping members in the building to handle calls and tasks is more difficult when they could be out working a part-time job to make that money. I know you as the council realize the citizens of this great county get a whole lot of bang for very little of the budget comparatively. I know that when the audits are submitted, there's a calculation included that shows what it would cost you salary-wise and what is saved by the county, and it pales in comparison to a small increase in allotment for the LoSAP program. I know the county treasurer spoke to us about the actuarial studies involved and the budget, and I, at the end of that meeting, agreed to be involved and lead the work group to have meetings with them and the actuarials, not only for this project, but another project that I've proposed.
You're out of time, buddy.
So,
Well,
thank you all.
Thank you for your service. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And as you can see, while we're sitting here, they're getting calls and leaving. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Scott Hurst, zip code's 21078. Chief of the Susquehanna Hose Company. Good evening, Council President, Vincent, and County Council members. First, I'd like to thank you for your continual support of the volunteer fire companies in Harford County and for your support of the Length of Service Awards program increase. As you know, volunteer fire companies across the nation are struggling to survive as times change with training standards, the economy, and the general lack of volunteerism due to time constraints due to family and work priorities. Harford County is very fortunate to have the volunteer firefighters continue to provide services, which saves Harford County hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Harford County is one of the few all-volunteer counties left in the state of Maryland, and certainly the busiest. The growth of Harford County has mandated 50% of our fire companies to in-station response and has pretty much killed home response. Thus, volunteers must spend more time away from home and in the station. Those 50% of the fire companies cover 75% of Harford County calls. This issue is one of the volunteers have no control over. The LoSAP program is by far our best recruitment and retention tool that companies use each and every day to promote joining the local volunteer fire companies. Continued improvements like this are needed to keep up with the ever-growing demand of being a volunteer firefighter. We recognize that due to an increase in the budget, money will need to be reallotted or cut, as we were told. However, that money will be well spent, the same as the county gets from the hundreds of millions of dollars we save Harford County each and every year. A number of the county flat out would not be able to fund or support in the foreseeable future without major tax increases. In closing, we look forward to working with everyone in the future and improving the volunteer fire service recruitment and retention programs and issues that come along with it that will hopefully in the future include a property tax credit that we've been discussing for several years now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your service.
Paul Deminato, followed by Scott Panowitz.
Name and zip, sir.
Good evening, Paul DiMonato, 21014. I came here to talk about data centers, but then I realized the LoSAP bill was on the agenda, so I decided to talk to this. If I asked anybody in the room, would you volunteer to run and burn in buildings, to commit over 500 hours to get firefighter 1, firefighter 2, EMT, would you take that job for $15 a year for 25 years? That's what they're getting. Basically, they get $15 a year for 25 years with this new bill. That's peanuts. They're basically responding to calls on holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, anytime that there's a high school graduation or something in their family's lives. They're running out the door, they're going to the fire station, and they're helping us in our time of need. I honestly think this bill doesn't do enough. We're increasing it $600 over a year. So I just heard it's costing the county $550K. If you look at our budget and you look at in the back where they have reserve funds and all that other stuff, we have the money in this county. We should be doing more for these volunteers. Thank you. I fully support this bill. I'm glad that the county council has unanimously sponsored this.
Thank you, sir.
And I would also say, You need to increase that death benefit. 5,000, you can't bury anybody. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Name and zip, chief.
Scott Panowitz, 21015. Good evening, Mr. President and council members. My name is Scott Panowitz, Chief of the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, and I am speaking in support of Bill 26010. The Length of Service Award Program is vital to sustaining the volunteer fire and EMS service in Harford County. The demands placed on our volunteers continue to increase. One of the most significant challenges is the growing call volume throughout the county as our communities continue to expand. While activities such as training, meetings, and administrative duties can be scheduled, emergency calls cannot. Volunteers routinely leave their families, friends, and workplaces at a moment's notice to respond to emergencies and serve the citizens of Harford County. Many volunteer fire companies still rely on a home-based response model. However, growth throughout Harford County and the town of Bel Air has increased traffic congestion, resulting in longer response times for members traveling to our stations to staff apparatus. At the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, we have adapted by implementing an in-station crew model to ensure we continue providing the high level of service our community expects. The change requires members to spend even more time at the station away from their families and personal commitments. During this transition, LOSAP has been one of the most important benefits we have promoted to both current and prospective members. The enhancement proposed in Bill 26010 will strengthen the benefit and help us retain the dedicated volunteers who make our service possible. Recruiting and retaining volunteer members remains one of the greatest challenges facing fire companies throughout Harford County. When speaking with prospective members, LOSAP is consistently one of the first benefits we discuss. While new members recognize its value, LOSAP becomes even more important as volunteers continue their service. We have seen numerous senior members remain active and engaged because of the benefits provided through LOSAP. LOSAP has been and continues to be one of the most effective tools for attracting and retaining volunteer firefighters and EMS personnel in Harford County. I strongly believe that changes proposed in Bill 26010 will help all volunteer fire and EMS departments recruit new members, retain experienced personnel, and continue providing the high-quality emergency services our citizens depend upon. I respectfully ask for your support of Bill 26010. Thank you.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
for the citizens, call volume for Bel Air.
We had 2,675 calls last year, and we had 5,703 unit responses. So
And
the average
Cubby,
is-
how many for Abington? 1,800. So, I mean, we're talking thousands of call amongst the 10, 11 fire companies in the ambulance corps and Harvard Grace. So I just wanted everyone to know that. Thank you for your service, Chief.
Thank you.
So this will conclude the public hearing for Bill 26010. I want to thank all of you for your service now and in the future and in the past. And this bill will be looked at tonight. We will act on this bill tonight. So thank you very much. And we're going to take a short recess so that they can get out and we'll bring other people in. Stephen, you want to take the helmet with you? Chief Hurst? Chair calls to order Bill 26011, a public hearing for zoning data centers. Mr. Overbay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Council President. For the record, my name is Steve Overbay. I'm here this evening representing Harford County government and would like to read the following statement on behalf of County Executive Casseley's administration. Good evening, Council President Vincenti and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a statement about Bill 26011, detailing my administration's legislation banning data centers in Harford County. As we sit here today, data centers are not a permitted use under Harford County's zoning code. Some may reasonably ask, if that's the case, why is this legislation necessary? The answer is simple. As county executive, I became alarmed by another bill that could have opened Harford County's door to data centers. That bill created a moratorium to plan for guardrails on data center development. Over the past 2 years, as data centers began to proliferate the nation, we conducted extensive research and examined the experiences of communities across the country that have embraced large-scale data center development. After that review, we reached a clear conclusion. Data centers are not in Harford County's best interest. Among our significant concerns are the high energy demand, noise, water usage, and the overall impacts on our environment and the quality of life. A single hyperscale data center can consume enough electricity to power more than 100,000 homes, approximately the number of households in Harford County today. In practical terms, one facility could double the county's residential electricity demand, sending our residents and commercial community energy bills even higher. Maryland is already struggling to meet its energy needs. Demand is increasing faster than supply. Last summer, Baltimore Gas and Electric warned of potential reliability issues and brownouts during peak periods of demand. Today, Maryland relies heavily on electricity generated outside of its borders, with more than 60% of our current power needed at peak load being generated outside of this state. At the same time, many of our neighboring states that currently supply much of that power through the PJM cooperative have expressed growing concern about continuing to subsidize Maryland's energy shortfalls while we pursue data center development and policies that further increase demand. The reality is simple. Our electric grid is already under strain, and large-scale data center development would only make this situation worse. Data centers are also on a collision course with Maryland's green energy policies that have greatly reduced in-state energy production. The state is requiring 50% renewable energy in 2 years and 100% renewable energy within 7 years. This super reliance on renewable energy is completely incompatible with data center development and energy consumption. Some proposals seek to allow data centers to generate their own energy through nuclear or fossil fuel-powered facilities, while residents, businesses, and manufacturers remain subject to increasingly restrictive state green energy policies. That is neither equitable nor sustainable. Our state's commitment to renewable energy is driving our residential rates higher each and every day. Given all of this, why would a local government consider data centers? The answer is tax revenue, as data centers produce very few local jobs. Communities such as Northern Virginia, which did have available energy capacity, embraced data centers based on promises of extraordinary tax receipts. Years later, many residents in our nation's data center capital are now confronting the unintended consequences of unchecked growth. Industrialization of rural landscapes, increasing energy demands, environmental concerns, and diminished quality of life. These troubles are not isolated to this country alone. As reported in this week's Wall Street Journal, Ireland has just issued a halt to all data center development as rapid deployment of data centers quickly consumed 1/5 of the country's entire power supply. Harford County has the benefit of learning from these experiences rather than repeating them. Bill 26011 takes a proactive approach. It provides certainty to our residents, protects our communities, and makes clear that Harford County will prioritize public health, environmental stewardship, responsible growth, and quality of life over speculative promises of revenue. We cannot leave this to chance. Our communities, our natural resources, and our quality of life are not commodities to be traded. That is why my administration has brought this legislation before you today, and why I respectfully request your favorable consideration of Bill 26011. Thank you, Bob Castley.
If I may, only because I didn't see you when you dropped this up here. Mary Catherine McCow, are you in the audience? Thank you. Thank you for your note. We appreciate it very much. I just wanted to recognize you for that. Thank you. Steve, do you remember when it was that you came and sat with Ms. Alleggi and I and asked us to consider putting together a work committee for data centers?
I would have been, I believe that would have been over a year ago, or right around a year ago, Council President?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I believe that. to be
Just
the case.
curious.
Yes.
And are you aware of the information that I have in front of me with the Planning Advisory Board and the comments in there?
I would need to see it, sir.
I'll give you a copy of it before
Okay.
you leave. I just wanted to be sure. All right. Counsel? Mr. Ben?
Hello, thank you for being here tonight. I do want to reference the minutes from the PAB meeting on March 11th that I had physically shared with me earlier today. Because I think it's important to state something that's in those minutes, a few things actually, but the first is that it states, until legislation is passed, battery storage data centers are handled on a case-by-case basis, which, as a reminder, was my whole initial point when I introduced the moratorium, was to make sure that nothing could be moved in a discretionary manner until permanent legislation was passed. Because a case-by-case basis means inconsistency, and that means insecurity for our community. It's also important to note that attending this PAB meeting on March 11th was the owner of Mountain Branch, along with a relative of theirs who spoke at that meeting. It was stated at that meeting that the PAB is going to do research and draft proposed zoning amendments for battery storage and data centers, and the owner of Mountain Branch spoke in support of this action at the meeting. And then later in the meeting notes, it talks about the question of timing. At the Planning Advisory Board meeting on March 11th, 2026, the Harford County Director of Planning and Zoning acknowledged on the record that the executive office would not introduce data center legislation before the election cycle concludes, and welcomed the possibility of a council member drafting legislation independently. Board members themselves made clear that they wanted legislation drafted and introduced now, before the election, not after. When I originally introduced the moratorium, the whole point was I had concerns over the possibility of someone, the day after Election Day, for example, changing their tune on this issue and potentially opening up our community to harms with no longer having the pressure on them of an election. And these notes to me recognize a possibility that the county executive was thinking along those lines. Why else would you need to wait till after Election Day to work on introducing regulations around data centers unless your concern is that the community might not like what you have to say about data centers? This also aligns with comments made by the county executive in public that he's not anti-data center, he can just read the tea leaves. So what do you say to those comments from March 11th at the PAB meeting?
Well, I would certainly say that, again, having not been at the March 11th meeting, I assume you're talking about former Director Grimm that was making those meetings?
No,
Was
it was
that
Matt Kropp.
Mr. Kropp? Okay, very good. So having not been there, Mr. Kropp has been involved in these very discussions, as has he been involved in the bill that ultimately is being considered by this council this evening. As it relates to the county executive's comments about not being anti-data center, I think, the belief is that data centers, there's a place for data centers, and that ag land certainly is not some of that. These are not something that's permitted currently, so a lot of that discussion that happened over the last 2 years I can speak to because I had been in conversations with the county executive about that, but that was about identifying and trying to learn, again, from communities. One thing that we learned is that these are very valuable commodities, meaning that there is a lot of tax revenue that comes into communities based on these, but that one by one across the nation and across the globe as it relates to now. What you're hearing is that from residents, both those in very close proximity as well as those that are much further away than perhaps what was once believed to be problematic, all have a very consistent theme. And in the discussions that were had, in speaking with all of those communities, had they had a chance to kind of rewind the clock and go back and do things differently, they would. So I think, the idea is this is a rapidly evolving technology. And, trying to make quick decisions about these things really does not make sense. I certainly am happy, I think, on behalf of the administration that, everybody seems to be in support of a commonality here, and that's not always the easiest to do, but I think in this case, for the betterment of Harford County, for the details outlined in the county executive's letter, that the belief is that this is the right thing for the county at this time.
Yeah, I just think it's important that I state on the record that inconsistency in the county executive stance, because I have been very consistent for a long time now on the fact that we have to push back against this industry from coming into Harford County. It's what I've been working on for over a year now, and I took umbrage to the county executive's comments suggesting that when I introduced a moratorium, it was some sort of sneaky effort to let data centers into Harford County, because it was nothing of the like. Meanwhile, the county executive has not been fully transparent with the public, and had stated that he didn't want to work on anything till after the election. So I just think that's important to clarify, so that people understand. Tonight, this bill is going to pass 7-0. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful that community pressure and reading the tea leaves led the county executive to landing in the right place. It's unfortunate that he can't be here tonight because he's at a fundraiser for his personal campaign. But it's good that we're able to get this work done tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Ms. Imhoff?
Good evening. So we keep referencing the PAB, the Planning Advisory Board. And so first I want to actually thank Councilman Bennett. Since he started creating this legislation, he has been willing and able to meet with me more than, half a dozen times. And I've been fully supportive of tightening up all of our zoning legislation. I'm a believer in, even if your name isn't the top of the legislation, that as long as the work gets done, that's the biggest priority. Now, going back to the Planning Advisory Board, just for full transparency, so this is the same board that said the county council member who has proposed the moratorium has separately stated in public testimony that he has spent months studying this data centers. The analytical work has been done. The professional planning apparatus of Harford County has signaled openness to council-initiated legislation. So that's coming from the Planning Advisory Board. Can you give a little bit of background as to who makes up the Planning Advisory Board and how they get appointed?
Actually, I would need to bring in planning and zoning to provide you with detailed information about that. That is certainly not my role within the administration, but I appreciate the question. Happy to provide clarity for you. I'll do that directly, and we can do that publicly as well.
So we have a list of the people who were in the attendance to the March 11th meeting who made these statements. And so just so everyone knows, the majority of the people on the Planning Advisory Board are appointed by the county executive, as with most of our boards and commissions and committees. And so we just found it to be interesting that while these boards their meeting minutes are posted online, the meeting minutes that we were provided earlier today were omitted. And I can't help but wonder why. There's been several copies of the meeting minutes that, in their full effect, that have now been made available. And I would like to know if the county is planning to actually publish the full meeting minutes.
I assume you received those from the county at some point today. Is that what you were referencing? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Steve, as you can tell, it's an election year.
Mr. Jandrodeno?
So, first of all, I'm just grateful that the bill is forward, that we're going to look to ban the data centers. I think it's clear nobody in the county wants it. most of the state doesn't want it, especially in the rural areas, especially in a golf course surrounded by communities that within 6 miles, that noise, low hum transmits through buildings, through people, and it's going to be hazardous to the health in the long run. Everything is changing with data centers. In 2 years, they might not need these humongous data centers. They're talking about putting them in space. They're talking about them being the size of an air conditioning unit sitting outside of a brand new home or something, and not these football field size of data centers that are taking up electricity and power and water. We're trying to bring a gas line 18 miles all the way in, and that's been my other concern is that, I've talked to Ms. Ledgy about it, can they come in and build an electricity center and then do that? And she's told me, no, we cannot do that, because that's been my other biggest concern is that, can they slip it in the back door somehow? If they build a nuclear thing, and they get power, can they say, hey, we got this extra power? As long as we ban the data centers, and I think you heard it from Councilman Bennett, we're all in agreement that we're going to pass this, move forward, get this banned, and I'm just grateful that there's a lot of people out here. I'm sure we're going to hear from everybody in all different reasons. Maybe there's 2 or 3 people that are for it. I got some of these letters up here, but they're from Maryland Tech Council and Fasto Consulting, so they're looking their way, but everybody else is going to be like, nope, we don't want data centers. So I don't know about the tax benefits. I'm not worried about the tax benefits. I'm worried about the people's health, and our community. So for me, I'm voting no data centers.
Did you have your hand up?
I did.
I thought so.
I was reading something at the same time. The email today from the PAB meeting that came to light to me today, and I was kind of churning on it because, I remember after Bill V, I can never pronounce his name, had emailed the council with all of the information and everything. I was the one that set up a meeting with him because some of the language made me wonder how far along he got with the county executive's office. And then I saw this and I thought, well, I'm glad I met with him because he truthfully was saying he got further along than what everyone expected to do. And as I stated to him, I was doing my own research on the data centers and talking to Frederick County and their council, and knowing about the pause and knowing that Councilmember Bennett was putting in the moratorium, thought that was great. I do think that the county executive putting in the data center ban, he did. I know the citizens were like, emergency, emergency, but he didn't do it as an emergency request or emergency legislation, which led us to have to amend it in order to make it emergency legislation so we can answer what you guys wanted to do, which was to ban the data centers. And I am in agreement with that because of the fact we have no idea what is going on with that, what the effects are. I've been reading more and more about the water and health and all of those things. And we cannot move forward with something coming into our community that we are unaware of the effects of for our community. So I am definitely for banning the data centers, but I do want to make that known that, in the back of my mind, and as Mr. Riley said, it's an election year, I'm still churning on what's going to happen in the future, and that's why we wanted to make sure there were parameters that were enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. Anyone else? So for me, I know there's been some questions about some emails, but as council president, everything that goes on in this county comes across my desk at some point. And I always am grateful for the records that our council keeps and has kept for years. We've seen time and time again where we have to dip back into them to clarify something. And I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad they do that. Whenever I get an email that has to do with any type of project in this county, all you need to do is talk to any of these folks on this council. We thoroughly investigate it. We look at all sides of it to make sure that it either is good or bad for the county. This is a no-brainer. None of us have ever said that we support data centers. Do we listen to the people presenting thugs to us? Yes. When the group that was here presenting and telling us their side of the issue, remember, they presented at the Abington Library first. Members of the administration were there listening. One of my council, or two of my council colleagues were there. I was not there. And my colleagues suggested that we have them come in just to listen to hear what they have to say. Not to support it, but to make sure that we have all the information needed to make a decision and do our due diligence as we do every day. So hopefully that will answer some of the questions that you folks have. The greatest resource that I've had with your group is through Brian Cornell. I've had an opportunity to speak to Brian on multiple occasions. I gave him a copy of the documents that we're talking about here tonight as far as the Planning Advisory Board. Actually goes into more detail that I have a presentation here that I will give him a copy of afterwards. I actually brought the copy out the night of the Bully Rock Candidate Forum in reference and talked about it in front of the county executive. So just trying to be transparent on everything. I've never talked about being supportive of data centers, and I never will. I said from this dais months ago, Harford County is not the place for data centers. Our ag preserved ground, our ag ground period, is not the place for data centers, and try to be very clear on that. And again, as Mr. Riley said, it is an election cycle that we're in. So things get twisted, things get out there for whatever reason. I will be voting to kill this, or to support this ban to kill data centers. Got a lot going on today. I did reference Mr. Overbay came to me and Ms. Alleghi early on, asked us to consider putting together a work group for data centers. And I told you no, that it should come from the administration if it's going to come at all. And I told you why. All the experts are on your side of the street, not ours. So, and I think that we did the same thing for the impact fee study. We brought together a large group. We talked about it. Months later, we had a draft piece of legislation that was sent to me from the administration, and it took Ms. Alleghi 6 minutes to look at that and come back to me and said, this is illegal. We can't do this. The state has guidelines and this violates the guidelines. So we had to send it back across the street. And, you know, not too much later, we got a bill that was correct and we were able to move it. And look forward to adjusting fees again if we have to, as far as, you know, impact fees. That's the way it should work. We should all work together on everything and stop all of this division that's going on in our county today. So with that, anyone else on this dais have anything to say? I'm used to saying Miss Dixon. Are you over there? Who's calling them out?
I'm over here.
So how many speakers do we have?
We have 47 this evening, Mr. President.
Well, that's a lot less than I thought. I thought there'd be more. So, as I said earlier, because Mr. Giangiordano made a statement at our last meeting where he said every voice needs to be heard,
Yep,
we're going to do it again tonight.
sounds good.
So the only thing I ask is that you be respectful of the citizens speaking that are recognized, and that no applauds, no outbursts, because we want to get through this. I had anticipated 50 plus, and I had anticipated 2 to 3 hours, so just for public comment. And we have a full agenda after that, so we may have to extend or step down from our rules and procedures and allow this meeting to run past 11. So with that, Ms. Dixon, call your first speaker.
Candace Hart, followed by Simon Hewitt, Greg Fox, and Ann Blocker.
Can't hear you.
That microphone is,
That one's done.
yeah, that's not gonna go. Call that first speaker again.
She's outside.
Candace Hart,
She's outside.
Very first one's outside.
She's just told me she's been waiting for 20 minutes, so I was like,
Call your second one.
Simon Hewitt, Greg Fox, and Ann Blocker.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip code, please.
Good evening, Simon Hewitt, 21085. I live just downstream on the Mountain Branch stream runs right at the bottom of our yard, just downstream from Mountain Branch Golf Club. So you can imagine I'm interested in this. I'm extremely grateful to all of you that you're going to vote for this ban. There are two reasons, and I want to focus on the second one. The first one is kind of obvious. A speeding train was heading without any control straight for our neighborhood to spread mayhem. And this bill, thank God, puts brakes on that speeding train. The inappropriate placement of a huge industrial plant in our gorgeous neighborhood is just an absurdity. So thank you for that. I've had another surprise tonight. I was born and raised in Ireland, and I've just heard that Ireland has had this problem too. So it's everywhere. So the main point I wanted to make was that we'll all celebrate your achievement tonight in combining, as you said we should, Chairman, and passing this bill. There may be a tendency or a temptation to say, great, it's done, we're over, it's over. I have had an experience in Arizona with a developer that I was a consultant to, who built big planned communities and new towns, and they wanted to build a community in a place in California that had a 40-year, every single development that they had been offered, they had shot to smithereens. So it was the last place in the world you would expect to pass. 5 years later, after expenditure of a lot of money, a lot of rose-tinted presentations of reality, kind of like the Harford Energy one, a lot of paid lobbyists, a lot of high-paid lawyers, a lot of community people who were actually enlisted to help. They succeeded in getting their development into that community. It took 5 years. Now, all the signs are there that this is what will happen here. So the main reason that I'm thrilled about this data center ban is it establishes the right team and the right starting point for that 5-year struggle. So when we vote in this election, I would ask you all to consider what is the right team that has shown, and we've heard different versions from the bench just tonight, what is the right team that has shown in their actions over the last many years, not just at election time, that they will be thoughtful and forceful leaders in resisting the override from Maryland, the override potentially from the feds, all the forces that will descend on us. You've probably heard that the owner of the golf club said this week, we are going to get this done. One encouraging thing that I just heard this afternoon, I'm nearly out of time, is that he had stopped all long-term bookings on the golf course for next year. Since the ban has come in, he has told them to sign up people for next year.
Thank you.
So, in closing.
Thank you, sir. You're done. Thank you.
Okay, one last thing.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and zip code, please.
Greg Fox, 21085. I have a study here that was released 2 months ago by Cambridge University. It was a study, universities in 5 countries got together to look at temperature effects, which hasn't been discussed so far. This goes in line with not knowing what you get with a data center. They looked at 6,300 non-urban data centers worldwide. They looked at 5 years of temperature data surrounding that prior to them going online. And then they looked at the temperatures afterwards. And they found effects out to 6 miles. Now, I'm going to do this, there's a lot of equations and charts in this, but I'm going to do this by way of example. 2 weeks ago when we met on this bill, it was 95 in the parking lot, hot day. If there were a data center put in on the big car lot out on Route 1, the used car sales lot, it would have been 98 degrees based on the average of those 6,500 data centers. It would have been a 3-degree increase. Now, averages in this case are misleading because the data they used was from 2004 to 2024. Data centers that came online in 2025 use 5 to 10 times more electricity than data centers that came online in 2020. So they're getting bigger and more powerful. So I would want to look at one of the maximum they saw. They saw an 11-degree increase in some cases, which would have put it at 106 degrees in the parking lot that night. Now, power consumption keeps going up, and there's no way to do zoning or permitting on temperature. That's just not something the technology supports. And you can't beat the second law of thermodynamics. All the heat that goes into these things, or all the power that goes into these things as electricity has to go somewhere, and it turns into heat. And it spreads into the surrounding areas. And we don't know how to model this. We don't know the effects. If you put 7 proposed data centers into Mountain Run, then everybody living within several miles of that would experience a summer similar to living in Death Valley or Las Vegas or Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Call your next speaker.
Mr. President, we do have Candace Hart.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Candace Hart, 21085. I'm here tonight as a candidate for the House of Delegates in District 7B. On May the 1st, I submitted a proposal to the County Council calling for a ban on data centers in Harford County at the state level. And my sponsor, Delegate Andre Johnson, agreed to move it forward in the next legislative session. I stand in support of Bill 26011, which would prohibit data centers in all zoning districts in Harford County, and I support a full ban being addressed at the state level. This is about bringing clarity and consistency to our land use policy, and ensuring decisions like this are made thoughtfully and transparently with residents in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Folks, please, I want to remind you, no applause because it all takes time. I want to be able to move through here in a timely manner. And we're all happy with every comment, I'm sure.
Ann Blocker, followed by Gary Johnson, Jimmy Packett, and Paige Keel.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
My name is Ann Blocker, 21085. I guess I really don't need to remind the council that Harford County residents do not need or want a data center on the Mountain Branch Golf Course site or any other green space or land area in Harford County where a data center siting is likely to cause irreparable damage to our land, our water, our homes, and our quality of life. The owner of Mountain Branch Golf Course, as he stated on June 2nd at the County Council meeting, will have us believe that without data centers, the economic future of Harford County is at risk. He suggested that the consequences of pursuing a ban on data centers will be severe, that we will become a county of solar farms, producing energy for data centers in other Maryland counties, and that these counties will benefit from the jobs and revenue that could have been ours. That argument is deceptive and desperate. It appeals to fear and relies on false claims. And I feel pretty certain that none of the other 22 counties in Maryland will be lining up to buy our fictional solar power in order to feed data centers that nobody wants. We are not a struggling county. In fact, I learned at the June 2nd County Council meeting that Harford County maintains a AAA bond rating. And I have reviewed the proposed 2027 budget with a total operating budget of $1,145,966,650. I think we will be just fine without a data center. With no data centers spoiling our land, our homes, and our county, young families will continue to buy homes here, start businesses here, spend their money here, educate their children here. I trust and I know from what you've said that every member of the Harford County Council values the people of this county more than the purse and will vote today to pass the emergency bill to ban data centers in Harford County. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, we're getting fewer and fewer. Mr. Johnson, before you start, I owe you an apology, and I might as well do it right now. I jumped to the conclusion the other night that you had said something that you did not, and my apologies. Thank you, sir.
And I should take a moment to thank you for the birthday card you sent me.
Name and zip code, please.
Gary Johnson, 21087. Winking offends some people. Opacity offends me. Opacity is a lack of transparency, something that politicians always promise but seldom deliver. Opacity keeps citizens from knowing the truth. The truth is that someone on this council invited a group of hyperscale data complex promoters to make a presentation regarding a proposed Mountain Branch site. No one on this council admitted to inviting them, but it is my understanding that such a presentation could not occur without the president's approval. Thus, you allowed them to spew their sunshine and unicorns, saying that this data complex would be all gain with no downside. You permitted that, but you didn't arrange for us to hear from experts who might have a different opinion. No environmental experts nor any experts in the field of industrial safety and compliance have yet to appear before this council. Shouldn't you have asked for their testimony? Wouldn't that be the job to serve us all? Sure, you let us speak, but we're not experts. Citizens have an expectation that their county council will represent all of us and not just a few. But that's not the way this feels. This feels like the fix is in. We don't expect Elon Musk and his ilk to care about us, but we do expect you guys to. Some of you contend that we can keep these data wolves at bay with a moratorium. Some of you, including Mr. Casserly, believe that we can strengthen our zoning code and thus ban these hyperscale data centers altogether. But Wes Moore has made such data centers a priority, and our legislature is with him. In May, the Daily Record reported that our General Assembly has concluded that local processes stand in the way of broader statewide priorities, and they, the General Assembly, are willing to displace local zoning authority to advance these priorities. So what does this council intend to do? Here's a thought. Put aside your petty squabbles and your political vendettas and come together to fight for us. For too long, Annapolis has worked to undermine our charter. The Maryland Court of Appeals disregarded our laws pertaining to the qualifications of someone to sit on this council. The legislature forces its agendas on our schools, but then doesn't fund them. And now, they disregard our right to be the stewards of our own land. Transparency says that you should provide all the information we need to know before a vote takes place. What are the risks to our water, our ears, our people, our livestock, our property values, and our way of life? History has proven that data centers don't belong everywhere, particularly they don't belong in residential areas. They also don't remain once erected. They come and they go. Who will pay to restore the Mountain Branch property to its original condition when this one leaves? If you want us to trust you, then do something to earn our trust.
Thank you, sir.
James Packett, followed by Paige Keel. Judith Brewer, followed by Stan Randall.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Paquette, 21078, lifelong Havre de Grace resident, and I currently attend Texas Tech University, where, let me tell you, the zoning laws are much different out there. So you guys should be proud that, at least here in Maryland, we have some kind of restrictions on passing stuff like this. In Lubbock, things just kind of get done without anybody having a say. So I do support Bill 26011. I hope it passes, and this is obviously it's going to. But I do want to leave this council and this community with one thought before we go home. We actually already have a data center, and that's the MCI facility at 2606 Carsons Run Road, which has been operating quietly next to the Stony Demonstration State Forest for years with minimal water use, minimal electricity, zero community complaints. And that's because they only process telecommunications data. So not every data center is the enemy. The enemy is the hyperscale AI data centers. That's what we need to be against. And that's what we're all trying to prevent. But the language that's in this bill does not define the difference. When a developer challenges this in court, and they're going to, a judge will ask Harford County to define what a data center is. And this bill will not have an answer, and that's a vulnerability. They're going to walk all over that. There's individuals that I see over there that are clearly not residents. They're typing away, and they're ready to tell their people back in their big corporations, hey, this is what we got to do to fight this. That's what they're doing. And so tonight's a win, and we should treat it as one. But shortly after tonight, this county needs to define exactly what a data center is and what one would look like if it were ever permitted here. I have drafted a proposed amendment. I'm 23. I'm trying my best. It's at the website, you guys can look it up, bill26011.org. That's bill26011.org. Very basic, but it could be the start of us being the first county to actually put legislature in place that other counties can take, and they can take that master plan and duplicate that across other counties to allow for a very small data center model like we have on Carsons Run Road. So, again, not opposed to data centers, opposed to AI hyperscale crazy BS. That's the issue. So this would grandfather in MCI, which is a Verizon co-op, and limits any future facility to telecommunications use only, which is what MCI is used for. This also will cap development at or below the size of MCI's existing footprint with mandatory wildlife preservation of the surrounding land. When this bill gets challenged in court, the kind of defined structure will give Harford County something to actually fight with. And again, bill26011.org. Thank you.
Jimmy, are you Jim Paquette's son?
Yeah.
Your dad put an alarm system in my store when I was having trouble with
Really?
theft. Put it in 2 o'clock in the morning,
Oh my gosh.
and when we opened at 11 o'clock, we caught the guy.
Really?
That fast, yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Paige Keel, 21085. I live on Stockton Road, very close to the proposed data center. I'm a civil engineer with a concentration in water resources, and I am for the data center ban. There are several issues that people have been discussing, but I would like to focus on the water issues associated with a project of this size, because the Harford Energy website that looks like it is a wonderful thing for our county has a lot of misinformation. So the first thing that I noticed when I went on and started doing some research was that it said 0 public water for cooling, no discharge to the public sewer. We don't use public water or sewer. We are on well water and we use septic systems. I find it offensive that they assume that we won't know the difference. They also state that they will use closed loop and air cooling systems. They will also, and I quote, use no routine water consumption or discharge. This is misleading in 2 ways. While air-cooled systems do not use water, they require a substantial amount of power, and you're just trading water usage for energy usage. The closed-loop systems that they are talking about, nobody asks questions about that. They just say it's closed loop and that there's no water usage, but that's not true. All of these lines have to be flushed and backwashed. There are also chemicals added to the water. There was a foodandwaterwatch.org website that says even closed-loop systems, you lose 25% of their water volume per month. So you're still using water. You're not using millions of gallons maybe, but you're using a lot. In February, the Michigan House of Representatives had a subcommittee meeting, and Tammy Clark spoke. There's a YouTube video that's an hour long with her speaking. She is in the industrial hygiene sector for 20 years, and she works with large industrial companies. She's not against data centers, she says that, but she said that the misinformation coming out from the data centers about closed-loop systems is a blatant lie, and that people need to be more informed that the systems are still picking up water. Chemicals are added to the water, and then the water is discharged and flushed, and that water is usually discharged and flushed just back into the river, back into the groundwater. And there's no rules or laws right now stating that they can't do that. So I just really worry about our well water nearby. And that's really all I had to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Judith Brewer, followed by Stan Randall, Nathan Regola, and Billy Boniface.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Judith Brewer, 21085. I'm actually not going to start the way I was going to. I'm actually pretty angry at you, Mr. Bennett, and you, Ms. Imhoff, for the unprofessional way that you talked about our county executive when you were doing that for your own personal gain. You're not there to sway our opinion. You were on that side of the podium. If you were on this side, it would be different. So I just want to start with that, and now I'll continue. I'm not going to go over all the harmful effects of data centers because you already know them. But what I want to point out is how ridiculous Bill Vasilakopoulos, owner of Mountain Branch, sounds when he tries to tout the benefits, as if you, the county council, and we, the residents of Harford County, are stupid. At the meeting of June 2nd, he says that the data center will bring jobs. Actually, Mountain Branch Golf Course employs more people than a data center would after construction. So we actually would be losing jobs. So if it's jobs he cares about, keep the golf course open. He said it would bring tax revenue. What good is tax revenue when no one wants to live in Harford County anymore because of the effects of data centers? And if the county needs money, maybe Bill should pay the approximate $1.22 million or more owed in tax and bankruptcy liabilities. So now it's almost time to vote, and it comes down to whom can we trust. This scares me. You know the old saying, beware the wolf in sheep's clothing. I've seen the video of Mr. Vincenti winking at the Maryland Data Center Alliance, and I was at the meeting when he allowed the general manager of Mountain Branch to speak longer than the allotted 2 minutes, ordering everyone not to interrupt her when her time was up. Mr. Vincenti, are you that wolf in sheep's clothing? I did hear Bill Vasilakopoulos try to throw Bob Casserly under the bus, which gives me more reason to vote for Bob Casserly. So again, when voting, think hard and do your research. There are some that invite data centers in, and there are some that want to ban them out. Let's keep our county green and approve this emergency bill to ban data centers in all of Harford County.
Thank you, ma'am. Call your next speaker.
Stan Randall, followed by Nathan Regola and Billy Boniface.
Nathan. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Nathan Regola, 21014. I have a PhD in computer science and engineering from the University of Notre Dame in Indiana and a law degree from George Washington University. I have a lot of experience with computing and storage infrastructure that is housed in data centers and have had access to data centers owned or leased by the University of Notre Dame, a Fortune 500 company, and the federal government. I have worked at 3 Fortune 500 companies in my career before starting my cybersecurity company headquartered in Harford County. All of these roles focused on large-scale data analysis or cloud infrastructures. Data centers do not belong in Harford County at hyperscale. The benefits aren't worth the cost, and I'll explain why. I used to live in Northern Virginia and had access to data centers in Data Center Alley. So when I worked at a Fortune 500 company, I was on a private cloud team that designed and operated significant internal cloud infrastructure across multiple data centers. Essentially, we designed the cloud and bought servers by the tractor-trailer load, and then operated the systems 24/7. We could remotely manage and update the systems in the data center. In the industry, the people that provide hands-on support are called smart hands because they might plug in a cable or install a server in a rack. They provide basic physical labor in a noisy environment. I'm not criticizing these individuals' jobs. I'm providing reality, as these aren't jobs that are going to support purchasing a home in Harford County. Data center companies don't usually design the applications, as that is the role of the customer or the corporate engineering and architecture teams, if we are talking about a hyperscale cloud provider. If there are engineers and cloud architects, they will likely be shared across the country and located outside of Harford County. So there are very few high-paying jobs per acre, which is one of the benefits touted. Construction jobs will likely be temporary, and it seems unlikely that electricians and other trades will all be local companies. The presentation from the Maryland Data Center Alliance talked about 240 electrical apprentices for Frederick County, but I don't think Harford County has ever had 240 electrical apprentices, so it is likely some of these individuals would be from out of the county. News stories are full of out-of-town tradespeople that work on data centers because of the specific experience and skills that are required to wire data centers, such as medium voltage and significant arc flash training. And of course, working 24/7 helps. Harford County law allows restricted electricians within a facility, so it would seem obvious that a hyperscale provider will have an internal restricted electrician instead of hiring a local company 24/7. It's 17 minutes and 48 seconds into the video from the Maryland Data Center Alliance. Ms. Schultz says, "There is no data center that has come online since we have been having this conversation. So the energy usage right now has nothing to do with the data centers that are here." This statement is not transparent because it does not factor in energy increases to existing data centers. What can happen is equivalent to increasing the size of your power feed from BGE to support an electric vehicle and saying no new houses have been built and therefore houses are not the cause of the power increase. But if you and your neighbors upgraded their electrical equipment to support electric vehicle charging and more demand, there is more electric demand, even though no new houses have been built in this example. So I'm confident that examining existing data centers in Maryland would support that at least some Maryland data centers are increasing their electrical load to support AI within the same physical footprint. I suspect most existing data centers in Maryland are not generating the power on site, but consuming power from the grid because that is more cost effective, and the state just enabled on-site generation on April 13th. So we don't build houses with natural gas-fired whole house generators as the primary source of electricity. We would all find this absurd. I think it is obvious that a
Thank
data
you,
center.
sir.
I'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and zip, sir.
Billy Boniface, 21034. I'll keep my comments brief because it's quite apparent each one of you are going to support this tonight. And I commend you for doing that. As Jim said, it's an election year. And very easily, any one of you could have played election shenanigans on this. But you're supporting the county executive because it's the right thing to do. And including you, Council President, you control the agenda. You introduce legislation on behalf of the county executive. So you could have made this a tough process, but you did not, and that is commendable. Thank you. I do hope that you continue to work together with MACO over the summer as you take your summer recess, because this is not going away. This will become a state issue at some point. I do want to take 1 minute to recognize Brian Cornell. If you would have told me, he called me several months ago because he heard about the data center going in, and he asked, how do I get involved? Because he didn't even know that there was a county council. And I said, I explained to him who to call and who to get involved with, that it would grow from that and having that first meeting to all of you being here and still lined up and down the street. That is commendable. That is him and his family. That shows true activism in its finest. So thank you. And he even has his own first Facebook page. He'll probably regret having that at some point. But thank you very much, Council.
So all this is your fault. Is that what you're saying?
You have to ask him that. Thank you.
Diana Sadowski, followed by Jay Keel and Amber Metallo.
Name and zip.
Diana Sadowski, 21047. Tonight I stand in support of the County Executive's Bill 26011, the data center ban. The fact that we're even here debating this issue is the direct result of a lack of transparency surrounding the proposed plans for Mountain Branch Golf Course. For more than a year, conversations occurred quietly. Discussions with the property owner remained behind closed doors. The public was largely left in the dark until the prospect of a data center was finally brought into these chambers. Why? Because everyone knew what would happen when the public learned the truth. People would ask questions, residents would demand answers, communities would push back. And that's exactly what's happened. The people of Harford County have spent weeks educating themselves. They've attended meetings. They've reviewed reports. They've spoken to experts. They've shared concerns about energy consumption, water usage, environmental impacts, noise, infrastructure strain, and the long-term consequences of placing massive industrial facilities in our communities. Meanwhile, we've heard every sales pitch unimaginable. We've heard promises of opportunity. We've heard promises of prosperity. And we've heard promises that everything will be fine. They've even given these projects a friendlier name. They're not data centers anymore. They're campuses. A campus. That sounds welcoming, doesn't it? But no amount of rebranding changes what these facilities are or the impacts they can have on the communities around them. So tonight you have an opportunity to do something simple and important. Protect Harford County and protect the communities you were elected to represent. And I'll be honest, every night lately, I've found myself thanking God that this happens to be an election season. Because without the scrutiny that comes with elections, without citizens paying close attention, without accountability, who knows where some people's allegiances might have been. So tonight is your opportunity to show exactly where they are. Vote yes on this bill. Vote yes to ban data centers in Harford County. And finally, a message to Mountain Branch Bill. If this doesn't work out, don't worry. There's always that solar farm option thanks to Wes Moore. Wink, wink.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Brennan Keel, 218085.
Did you say Keel?
Keel.
Thank you.
K-E-I-L. I've been a resident of Harford County since I was 10 years old. I was lucky enough to buy my family farm on Stockton Road in 2018 to raise my own children right here in our beautiful county. Speaking in support of the data center ban, no one is asking for AI. Google, Facebook, and every other internet service I use worked just fine before AI. It's being forced on us by these tech billionaires. Every day, I'm disabling a new AI feature that came up with the update that downloaded overnight on my phone. And AI and data centers are not popular. 70% of Americans view them negatively. I'm confident that any council member, were you foolish enough to vote against this ban, would not be sitting in that seat come November. It's already happened in multiple districts across our country where entire councils have been voted out for allowing these data centers into their communities. And for the data center itself, AI and data centers are absolutely a bubble, like the subprime mortgages, like the dot-coms. There's currently 5,000 proposed data centers across our country. Elon and SpaceX want to put them in space. Once that land is developed, it's gone forever. Even when the proposed data center is shuttered, it's going to be an abandoned industrial eyesore in the middle of an otherwise pristine agricultural and residential area. And let's say I'm wrong. It's not a bubble. The proposed site is 300 megawatts with aspirations of expanding to 1.3 gigawatts, I apologize. 1 gigawatt is enough energy to power every single one of Harford County's 100,000 households 3 times over. So here we are in a statewide energy crisis discussing solar farms all over our green spaces of this county. But suddenly one facility on Mountain Branch Golf Course is going to generate 3 times the power the entire rest of our county uses. And they claim that they're going to do it completely emissions-free. What happened to global warming? The dangers of fossil fuels? Apparently, we've had the technology all along, and Bill Vasagadopoulos and his partners have been holding out on us. There is the alternative, though. Bill and his friends are lying about their emissions and capacities. And let's discuss that much power usage. The heat islands have already been brought up, so I won't bore you with that. Although I will say, the heat islands can expand up to 6.2 miles from the site. Right here where we all sit today, you're 4 miles from it. So that temperature spike would be right here today. So with that said, that's what I have to say. And I just want you to know all these notes are handwritten. There was no AI involved with this, nor will there ever be.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Good evening. Amber Metallo, 21014. But I'm not here tonight to advocate for my house in Bel Air, which for the record is within the noise distance of a proposed data center at Mountain Branch. I'm here tonight to advocate for my parents' farm, my future, which is located across the street from Mountain Branch Golf Course. You know, it's easy to take a place for granted when you're living there, because that's what you're used to. The mature oak trees, fresh air, birds singing, crickets chirping. Sitting on the back deck watching the horses graze and hearing that flick and swish of a tail when a fly annoys them. As dusk arrives and you see the first few lightning bugs come out, that quiet and stillness washes over you. It's almost palpable. If someone asked me to define home, that's how I would describe it. I spent 8 years of my adult life outside of Maryland, 4 of those in Florida, working on a graduate degree, and 4 in Alaska, building my career. When I got the opportunity to take a lateral job move to Baltimore, with my agency, I didn't hesitate. No promotion, no increase in benefits, actually a significant pay cut, but that move brought me home. There's that word again, home. Why do you ask? Because there's nowhere else where I wanted to put down roots and start a family. I want to raise my kids how I was raised, on a farm in the country. I can't think of a better childhood. Most of the people I've heard speak have addressed the council directly, so I'm going to take my remaining time and address the people in this room and our neighbors who couldn't be with us tonight or are still standing outside. This vote tonight is not the end. It's just the beginning. Our fight is just getting started. Data centers shouldn't be in Harford County. Data centers shouldn't be in anyone's backyard. I'm proud to stand with all of you, and I will see you in Annapolis. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Scott Padu, followed by Victoria Virgil, John Gaffney, and Chrissy Flatow.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Padu from 21014, and I would like to highlight an issue with AI data centers that I haven't heard discussed in the previous meetings. The proposed upside of building AI data centers anywhere is the tax revenue that would be generated from them. However, I think we should be skeptical of that premise. There is currently no profitable AI data company, not OpenAI, not xAI, not Anthropic. They're all currently operating at a loss, funded by venture capital investments. These companies operate at a loss on every customer. Every prompt sent to ChatGPT costs OpenAI money. Even their highest tier subscription that costs $200 a month is reportedly unprofitable. And this is happening while data centers are operating with the fewest restrictions possible. I'm sure we've all heard claims that the AI industry is massive and expanding, but the truth behind these claims is that most of these profits are given to chip manufacturers and infrastructure builders like NVIDIA and Broadcom. Once the AI data center is built, it generates less than no value. It actively destroys value with heavily subsidized services that are funded by private investors. Much of what has been discussed in these meetings is whether the value this data center will bring to our county is worth the damage it will do. But I believe we should be asking, how can this data center provide any value when it can't provide any value for itself? I support a full ban on AI data centers in Harford County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Victoria Virgil, 21009. Good evening, Council President, members, and guests. My name is Victoria Virgil. I'm a sophomore at Bel Air High School and a member of my school's Student Government Association. I am sure we can all agree that Harford County is a beautiful place to live with a rich history and natural beauty, from the suburbs and more populated areas to the rural farmlands. Imagine waking up to the smell of a diesel exhaust and a persistent humming sound as loud as a highway while watching your community's water supply run low. As a resident of Harford County, this is not something I would ever think of happening, but this will become a daily reality due to the massive water and energy demand of a nearby data center. Data centers are an extreme threat to the sustainability of Harford County and its quality of life. According to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, a medium-sized data center can consume about 110 million gallons of water per year for cooling purposes, equivalent to annual water consumption of about 1,000 households. A larger data center can consume up to 5 million gallons of water per day, which is about 1.8 billion gallons annually. Chemical runoff in these cooling systems can contaminate soil and waterways, which has the potential to travel directly to our crops and damage the environment supporting local farmers. It is also important to mention that fossil fuels are heavily relied on by our data centers, emitting air pollutants and fine particles that raise serious public health risks and worsen the condition of residents that have respiratory diseases such as asthma. A legacy is planting seeds in the garden you never get to see. Do we wish for Harford County's legacy to be built around a data center that strips it of its sustainability and quality of life? Or a place that offers somewhere to thrive for the citizens that live there and its future? To build this legacy, we can start making efforts to find sustainable and water-efficient ways to support innovative technology and eliminating the construction of a data center in Harford County. As a community, we must focus on what is truly important, providing the best possible life for the future and building a place we are proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Gaffney from Joppa, Maryland, 21085. Thank you for this opportunity to oppose data centers in Harford County. Thanks to the council members already in opposition. However, the state of Maryland can always supersede the council's authority and undermine your zoning decisions, issue special permits, and shift Harford County into a spiraling industrialization hazard. We're all aware of the impact of data centers on water, power pollution in the community. You simply cannot put one in a residential area on well water unless the goal is to cause a disaster, one like we've seen in Newton County, Georgia, the Dalles, Oregon, and Amarillo, Texas. Entire towns were destroyed. So we need to stand up against the state, make sure we keep these data centers out of areas with limited water supply, such as Joppa, Falston, Bel Air, everywhere in Harford County, right? So I'm confident the council will do its part and block data centers at the county level, but you need to oppose the state of Maryland, and that's gonna hit us soon. The citizens of Harford County can help, but we need your expertise. We need you to inform us, provide impactful, powerful guidance and action items to fight against data center battle with the state. We need you to harness the power of your people. Can you please put together and advertise a website, for example, which includes contact names and email addresses for state officials, phone numbers to call, suggestions for impactful comments, references to legal precedents, timeline of events, time-sensitive data, an emailing list so we can all be alerted quickly so we can act, and whatever else you would feel would be helpful to sway the state's decisions in our favor. There are a lot of concerned people who want to fight data centers. Use us to be a tool so we can be seen and heard at the state level. I mean, you've seen, Ms. Robert, Mr. Bennett, you've seen what we can do when it comes to things like Ridgely's Reserve, Days Cove, the park and rides, you know, the warehouses, the zoning conflicts that we have. So you know we've got a voice locally, but we can take that and we can develop a plan before it's needed, and we can start telling the state what we want and how to react when it's time for us to do so. So I'm asking whatever you can do to facilitate the people in your favor so we have a strong force and a strong voice now rather than later. Man against machine, right? Thank you for your time. Have a
Thank you,
nice
sir.
evening.
Hold on just a second, I'll let that big crowd get away from you. Folks, can you find a seat, please? Ma'am, whenever you're ready, name and zip.
Chrissy Flato, 21085. Good evening. Tonight, I want to speak not just as a resident of Stockton Road in Harford County, but as someone who believes in the responsibility we have to protect the land that sustains us. Many of us grew up reading Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. It's a children's book, yes, but it's also a warning. And as someone who works in a library, I turn to books because they help us understand the world around us and the choices we face. In this story, the Onceler looks at a beautiful, thriving landscape and sees only what he can take from it. He cuts down the truffalo trees one by one, insisting, "I'm doing no harm, I'm being quite useful." And each time he takes more, the Lorax appears to say, "I speak for the trees." Tonight, I feel like the Lorax is speaking through most of us, because what is happening in Harford County mirrors that story far too closely. Just like in the Lorax, this project is presented as harmless, even beneficial, but the cumulative impact tells us a different story. Noise, pollution, industrial lighting, miles of pipeline, and the permanent loss of agriculturally zoned land, these are not small things. These are not temporary things. And once this land is gone, it is gone forever. In the book, the Onceler keeps asking more and more of the land until there is nothing left to give. And that is the question before us now. How much more can Harford County give before the damage is permanent? At the end of the Lorax, the Onceler hands over the last truffalo seed and says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." We are the someone. We are the ones who care. We are the ones asking you, our elected officials, to care with us. Protect this land, protect this community, protect the future we will hand to our children. Last time I spoke here, I gave each of you a copy of The Giving Tree, and someone did offer to purchase copies of the Lorax for each of you. But instead of that, I asked for her to donate to the Harford County Boys and Girls Club, because I feel like protecting the future of Harford County means investing in the children that will inherit it. So I hope you guys understand why you didn't get another book today. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nathan Beck, followed by Justine Hendricks, Daniel Billings, and Paula Edding.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Nathan Beck, 21050. I'm coming here today as someone who has not only been to, but actively helped construct the data center out in Frederick. I'm paid to go there, and I do my job. Having said that, the proposed data center at Mountain Branch is the same style as up in Frederick, the only difference being that they also intend to have a natural gas power plant. There's not much need for that in Harford County, but at the same time, I disagree with the outright ban of all data centers. Most data centers, since the invention of the internet, are small-scale buildings which allow IP to be hosted, websites, calling services, things that we use every single day without even thinking about it. The TVs you have on, go through a data center at some point unless you have a small locally hosted server in the building somewhere. If we ban all data centers, we're relying on the other counties and states around us to supply that to us in perpetuity. That's not guaranteed, and small-scale data centers exist as close by as Rosedale. It's not far away. You've probably seen it before if you've driven through there. It just looks like a building, and it's no bigger than the one we're in right now. I think it's actually smaller than this building. I believe its number of workers is about 10 people, and most of them are custodians. It's not much, but if we can make some of our abandoned light industrial land or heavy commercial land into that, if somebody wants to set that up, I don't think we should stop them. The impact is minimal, and it does provide something more than an abandoned building, which we have a lot of in some areas of the county.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Justine Hendricks, 21078. I am here to speak supporting the bill that bans the data centers in Harford County, and I am hopeful to hear that it will be unanimously voted on today. There are more than 3,000 proposed data center projects in the United States that have already been postponed or completely canceled due to pushback like you've seen and heard from this room in the last few weeks. That's because communities like ours have seen the short-term implications of these projects in other areas. There are health issues, noise pollution, light pollution, and lots of water usage. The communities near these massive complexes have been asked to reduce water usage while the data centers continue to use it for their servers. There are increased incidences of health conditions like asthma and COPD, even among people who have not ever been smokers. In Virginia, where there are plenty of data centers, they estimate that the annual health damages from pollution could be in the tens of millions of dollars. And those are just the short-term implications. We haven't had massive hyperscale data centers of this size long enough to know the long-term ramifications and consequences. Data centers bring short-term jobs during construction, but as many people have noted, most of those are not local jobs, and even the largest of the data centers create fewer than 150 permanent jobs. That's according to a survey of 6,300 data centers. They do drive up energy costs. They have poisoned water in local wells nearby, which is a huge concern for this one. And they disrupt also the patterns of local and migratory animals. Monterey Park, California, voters just voted to permanently ban data center construction. The state of New York has introduced a moratorium, as has the city of Denver, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa, and smaller cities in New Jersey, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. These are not popular projects because we have had the benefit of seeing and learning from the experiences of other communities, and this is our opportunity to stand up for ourselves, for our health, and for the future of Harford County by banning these data centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, you say everyone's inside now?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Daniel Billings, 21771. Good evening, council leaders. I'm not currently a resident of Harford County, but this is my childhood home. And it pains me to see this beautiful place corrupted by those who do not live here and won't suffer the consequences of their greed. Last session, there was a large portion of the speakers in favor of the ban who spoke to the strains of the county's infrastructure, and this is of great concern. I do want to add, as a generator technician, one of the facilities down in Virginia has 1,500 kilowatt backup generators, each one of those units being large enough to not so comfortably fit into a semi-truck. But I want to speak on the parts that were glossed over or missed entirely, that being of the looming AI bubble burst, AI hallucinations, and how the companies will react. Now, I wasn't old enough to understand the dot-com bubble burst back in 2000, but I can clearly see the similarities to the current AI bubble and that it will soon burst. One of the keystone companies behind AI, OpenAI, is begging other corporations to use AI while they are hemorrhaging money billions at a time, and has the potential of going bankrupt by mid-next year. This will throw all AI development into chaos, which would leave the county with a massive facility with a big fat for lease sign out front, while the building leaches off the infrastructure. Along with this, new issues facing these companies of AI just making things up called AI hallucination. This can make up almost half of the responses that are spat out by the system and is a glaring issue in the long-term use of is a glaring issue bringing the long-term use of AI into question. And when a corporation starts to question whether or not something will be profitable, well, I'm sure we all remember the Amazon Fresh Market that was supposed to be here. With this ban, we're not finished with this unpleasant business and must now push the advantage before Annapolis can null the will of the people of Harford County. This is a call to action to the council. Do not sit idle, for the opposition will scheme long into the night so they may pillage and pervert our beautiful county. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening. Paula Edding, 21014. Good evening, President Vincente and council members. I serve as the mayor for the town of Bel Air, and I am a candidate for District C, where I have lived for over 40 years. And I'm here tonight to speak to you in support of the county executive's bill on the data center ban. I'm very happy to hear that apparently it's going to pass 7-0 tonight, so I have much fewer things to say. But the bill does the one important thing that we need, which is it permanently bans data centers here in Harford County. We are fortunate that we have been able to learn from the mistakes of others. They were the guinea pigs in a terrible failed experiment. Aberdeen on Monday passed a data center ban. The town of Bel Air will have a public hearing on its data center ban bill on the 22nd of June. And this is our one chance to protect Harford County from the damage that data centers will do to our communities and to our county. We cannot let it go by. Once we've lost, we've lost. But the vote tonight, as several others have mentioned, cannot be the end. We cannot let down our guard. Governor Moore and his friends in Annapolis have shown that they are very happy to take away local control and force their bad ideas on counties like Harford that have no interest in data centers or high-density housing or any number of other things that are not appropriate for Harford County. Annapolis thinks it knows what is best for us out here in Harford County, but we know what is best for Harford County. We live here. So we have to remain vigilant. The report that was ordered by the General Assembly on data centers in Maryland is due to the legislature on September 1st. I'm anxiously awaiting that report. Once we have that in hand, we'll have a better idea of where the state is heading. And then all of us, residents, everyone here in this room, elected officials, local, state, all of us, have to work together to prevent data centers from being forced on us here in Harford County. And if Annapolis attempts to send data centers here, despite local opposition, which I'm sure there will be, we have to be prepared to fight those efforts and minimize any harm that they could cause to our county. I look forward to the unanimous vote passing Bill 26-011, and I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
John Fiastro, followed by Rico Albuquerques, Jay Evans, and Christopher Anderson.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Good evening, Council President. My name is John Fiastro. My zip code is 21093. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of a light industrial landowner here in Harford County, and I urge this council to vote no on 2611. Much of tonight's concern has centered on agricultural land, and I understand that. But there's been little contemplation of industrial land here in Harford County. This bill touches the property rights of every industrial landowner in the county because a blanket ban is the wrong tool and because it exposes the county to a real legal risk while foreclosing a better solution. The county's zoning code permits by right uses far more intensive than a data center. Within LI and GI, rubble fills are permitted by right. Sanitary landfills, permitted by right. Mineral extraction, processing, equivalent to mining, here in Harford County, permitted by right. So are concrete and asphalt plants, abattoirs, and slaughterhouses here in Harford County. Yet this bill would make a data center the one use prohibited in every district, and that's not a measured land use policy. It singles out one use for treatment, and it's a treatment that we do not apply demonstrably to heavier industrial neighbors. So the ban I would suggest to this council is a riskier path, and it runs against state policy. Under the Critical Infrastructure Streamlining Act of 2024, Maryland's statutory framework treats data centers as critical infrastructure. A county that prohibits the use outright is setting itself on a collision course with state law and inviting the exact preemption concerns that the county has seen on energy projects. I would also point the council, I sent to you this afternoon, the Attorney General's letter to Delegate Mark Fisher, dated April 1st, advising that a temporary infrastructure-based moratorium is likely within the county's delegated zoning authority. However, the sharper constitutional exposure, takings, and private contract impairment attaches to restrictions that strip a property of its value. A permanent prohibition is far more vulnerable to those claims than a temporary pause would have been. Passage of this bill could lead the county to litigation. Councilman Bennett, you had the right instinct with a moratorium. A pause would have given this body time to write real standards on water, noise, environmental safeguards, just as the code already imposes conditions on other heavy uses. Unfortunately, that pause was set aside in favor of an outright ban. It should be considered that no Maryland county has adopted such a ban. Not even Loudoun County, the epicenter for data center development, has done this. And Loudoun County has faced far greater pressure. It chose instead in 2025 to require and to regulate approval in its industrial districts as opposed to an outright ban. Council President, members of the council, you should oppose this ban. Instead, adopt an amendment that pauses the approval of any data center.
Thank you, sir.
Until, Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate, there's
Thank you,
50
sir. Your
people
time
here.
is up.
I would suggest to regulate and set standards.
Sir, your time is up. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Rico Albuquerque, 21014. Thank you, Council President, County Council members. As I try to find an argument that might resonate with folks here tonight in the council, I know where all of your heads are. I kept coming back to the same issue. It's hard for me to find an argument that maybe would resonate because I don't actually know the principles that all of you hold dear. And what I mean by that is that Harford County is a red county, right? Like we all know that. Normally, that means private property rights, free enterprise, and keeping government out of the way of business. But tonight, we're discussing a law that would permanently ban an entire industry. Not regulate it, not negotiate with it, not establish standards for it, just ban it outright. I've heard warnings about corporate greed, putting people over profit, concerns over money changing the character of our county. And those are arguments you usually hear from liberals and progressives. Something you might expect in Montgomery County or PG County or Baltimore City. Something I frankly did not expect here in Harford County. Are we saying my property rights only matter if my neighbor agrees? Are we arguing against private investment making its way down to working folks? As a lifelong Democrat, I find that fascinating. And maybe I'm a little encouraged to hear progressive talking points like concerns over global warming and corporate greed. I hope these democratic tendencies manifest themselves in other places outside of this one conversation. things like being in support of clean energy initiatives, because I hear a lot of people talking about energy prices, but some of those same folks are opposed to solar projects and battery storage projects, things that will lower energy prices and make energy, yes ma'am, yes they will.
Folks,
But we don't want energy generation, we don't want new infrastructure, we don't want new industry, we don't want new investment, but we don't want higher utility bills, we don't want higher taxes, we don't want underfunded schools or fewer job opportunities. An outright ban does not alleviate those problems. And I think, as a resident, the county would be better served having a discussion about where to build infrastructure and industry and how to use it to our advantage. Thank you very much.
thank you, sir.
Jay Evans, 21050. Good evening, Council President, members of the council. I'm a resident of Forest Hill, but I raised my kids in Fallston, not far from the Mountain Branch complex, so I feel very tied to it. I'm a former planning and zoning commissioner, and I'm also a candidate for county council in District D. I'm here tonight in support of this bill and this moratorium. And let me be clear, I support this bill because I believe Harford County should prohibit large-scale data centers altogether. Not because I'm anti-technology and not because I'm anti-business, but because I'm unapologetically pro-Harford County. As a former planning and zoning commissioner, I've learned that every major land decision comes down to one question: what are we willing to give up? Because every yes comes at a cost. We're told data centers bring jobs and tax revenues, but good leadership doesn't simply ask what can be built. Good leadership asks if it should be built at all. When I look around Harford County, I see a productive farmland, open space, forests, and communities where families put down roots for generations. People choose Harford County because it still feels different. They want it to stay that way. What concerns me most is what these facilities could take away: farmland, open space, and our rural character, the very things that make Harford County special. These facilities consume enormous amounts of electricity, require major infrastructure, and provide relatively few permanent jobs once construction is complete. And once they're built, they're built. You can't turn a data center back into a farm. You can't restore rural character after it's been industrialized. Once that land is gone, it's gone. I want to thank the members of this council for joining with Bob Casserly by recognizing that some decisions are too important to rush. By supporting this moratorium, you're giving our community the time needed to fully understand the long-term consequences before decisions are made. Residents are here because they love Harford County and believe some things are worth protecting. Their message is simple, and I say to you and to Annapolis, we don't want industrial scale data centers in Harford County ever. Not on our farmland, not at Mountain Branch, and not in our rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and zip?
Chris Anderson, 21219. I am not a county resident. I am a representative of Plumbers and Steamfitters, Local 486. Data centers are a rapidly growing component in the nation's digital infrastructure and represent a significant income opportunity for Harford County. These projects support thousands of jobs throughout the construction, maintenance, and operations sectors. Local 486 represents nearly 3,000 highly skilled plumbers, steamfitters, welders, and HVAC techs. 472 of those members call Harford County their home. We are excited about the opportunity to keep our members working close to home while creating pathways for county residents to enter rewarding careers through our registered apprenticeship. These projects allow us to invest in local workforce while helping build the next generation of digital infrastructure. As a lot of people have mentioned, the construction, there is thousands of jobs, and people always like to say, oh, it's temporary jobs. These temporary jobs are what my career was built on. Up until 18 months ago, I was in the field building buildings, building Johns Hopkins Hospital, building data centers. That is what our livelihood is built on. That's what my retirement is going to be built on, is building the infrastructure and the hospitals and data centers that we use on a daily basis. With that being said, I also wanted to touch a little bit on the water. As an expert in the field and doing this over 20 years, the water usage, as you know, people have mentioned here and there that it uses millions of gallons of water on a daily basis. It does not. They are closed loop systems. The closed loop systems do have flaws here and there, but they do not use the amount of water that is being portrayed all over social media, a data center. And they are using air-cooled, every data center that's currently being built is using air-cooled chillers, not evaporative cooling with cooling towers where the water is evaporating into the atmosphere on a daily basis, where you have that makeup water of millions of gallons of water. I kind of went off script, so I respectfully urge you to consider the long-term economic, workforce, and fiscal benefits that a project of this nature would bring to Harford County. This opportunity to strengthen the local economy, create family-sustaining careers, generate significant tax revenue, and invest in the county's future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Ray Baker, followed by Alan Securo, Nathan Regola, and Christopher Blocker.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Ray Baker, 20746. I'm not going to be here before you all long. I appreciate and respect that the community has made their voice heard. The last time I was here with you, they made it heard before. I asked Council President Vicente when he asked me how am I doing, I said, you can make me do a lot better. And he said, no. And so I respect that, Council President, and I appreciate that. I also want to appreciate something that we heard a little bit earlier, and it's speak about the notion of trade-offs. The same way that we heard someone who was a candidate for county council allude to, we cannot merely say yes without understanding what we're saying no to, what we're losing out on. I invite us to consider that what happens when we say no. I recognize people have this strong and intense desire for a complete and permanent ban. I stood before you all just some weeks ago, supportive of a moratorium, believing that through a moratorium we might get to a place that would ultimately provide the people that I represent with the Baltimore, D.C. building construction trades an opportunity to come to work right here in Harford County. We even heard, well, we don't have enough apprentices in Harford County. When I'm at Joppatown High School, they're asking me, so how can I get in? When I'm at Harford Tech, they're asking me, so what work opportunities do you have? And the only time that I can expand our apprenticeship classes is if we have more work on the horizon. Again, I am aware that you all are not interested in building a data center. What I am asking of us to consider, even with the decisions that we're making around permanence, is that we think about that which we're giving and that which we're getting. I understand that we're all apparently very big fans of solar farms here. I understand. We're not fans of solar farms, and we're not fans of the state mandates telling us what has to happen. And yet, the actions that we are prepared to urge our council people here to take tonight invite that same behavior. It invites that same hostility. Now, where we are now, we have some degree of leverage, and I'm including myself in the we. Why? Because I am a resident of Maryland. I also pay BG&E prices. I also have to grab my energy from the PJM. And so I understand some of the concerns and complaints that are present. And so at this juncture, if we do not have a permanent ban, the council, the county executive, whomever it may be, that is you guys' election, not mine, has better leverage and opportunity to engage and negotiate with developers to set the terms that are fitting for any industrial project that'll take place here. I would like to put my members to work. I've had some of my colleagues come and tell you that they've worked in the field, and it provides job and life-changing opportunities to build the thing that you all are saying you all do not want. But you have leverage now. You may not have that leverage soon. I would much prefer Harford County to be able to participate in a conversation where they have leverage than where they do not. But that decision is ultimately yours. I hope sincerely that the council will reconsider the permanence of the ban. I hope the public would reconsider the permanence of the ban. But nonetheless, the decision is yours. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Name and zip?
Alan Securo, 21009. I'm going to try and talk fast, 3 minutes, not a ton of time. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about, a lot of which echoes a lot of sentiments we've heard tonight already. I do understand some of the arguments on the other side, too. People who are supporting this and want to build these. We are talking about jobs. We're talking about things like that. To be clear, I am on the other side of the fence. I fully support a ban on this. So I'm going to take some of the numbers that I've researched and looked up today and throughout the past week. We're going to cut some of them in half. So a young lady mentioned earlier that large-scale data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons of water a day, which I think is actually probably pretty accurate given the size of some of these. So let's cut that in half. Let's call it 2.5 million. So at 5 million gallons a day, the EPA says the average person uses 82 gallons of water a day for washing clothes, drinking, showering, all that kind of stuff. So with the 5 million gallon number, that's the daily supply for 61,000 people. So if we cut that in half, that's still 30,000 people. According to HarfordCountyMaryland.gov's website, the demographic data, we have over 100,000 residents that are 65 and older or 18 and under. We are talking about putting their water supply at risk. All of our water supply, but if we want to like hit home and make it emotional, minors and the elderly. So we're going to take 30,000 people and say, maybe you get clean water. We're not sure, right? Let's gamble. Let's flip a coin and see what happens. I don't support that. We all know there's going to be energy price increases. I had a whole thing written about that. But the fact is, they're not going to pay their own bill. That's coming to us. We know that. And I have yet to see a tenant of any data center cut everybody that it affects a check, say, we got your bill overages. Don't worry, it's on us. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that the county government or the state government is going to do that, right? It's not going to happen. So we're now paying the bill for something that, generally speaking, I think people in this room do not want, right? I understand there's two sides to every story, at least, but it seems like that's not what we want. The jobs thing has been brought up, so I'm going to, again, summarize. Yes, there are construction jobs. That will spike for a couple of years, and then they will go away. I know a gentleman just mentioned that a career has been made off of these temporary jobs. Absolutely understandable, right? We all need to work. We've been building other things. The data center conversation is new over the past couple of years. Did nobody have a job prior to that? I don't see how this is required, right? So overall, I just kind of feel that, you know, the job here is to figure out what's good for Harford County. And what's good for Harford County is what's good for their residents. So I'm not stupid enough to say something is all good or all bad. That's not how it works. But I think that to have data centers anywhere in Harford County, given the current landscape of how we all work and live and operate, is a net negative, which is why we do need to be in favor of this ban. I've got 4 seconds left. I thank you all for inviting us out to talk. And real quick, thank you. If anybody else is still in the room, I don't know who's come and gone, but the firefighters, another big round of applause for them. I appreciate everything they do. Thank you, guys.
I hope I'm not skipping someone. My name is Christopher Blocker, zip code 21085. Some things in life are inevitable. Sickness, suffering, death, these are things that as human beings we ought to learn to bear with grace. They are existential facts. Then there are things in life that are not inevitable, that others want us to believe are inevitable. They only become inevitable when we accept their reasoning without question. The point is to make us complacent, resigned, discouraged. These are not existential facts, but entirely dependent on the choices that we make here and now. History is full of examples. It happens in the political sphere all the time. X candidate is too extreme, so even if you like their policies, you should vote for the establishment candidate. It's only the fact that everyone believes this that we end up with lukewarm representatives who would rather toe the party line than advocate for the interests of their constituents. It's half the reason so many people in our country end up supporting wars that cost countless innocent lives. War is inevitable. It's the only way to protect our financial or national security interests, and it's simply an unfortunate reality that so many innocent civilians will die. There is nothing we can do to mitigate the disastrous effects of climate change, and no viable alternatives to burning fossil fuels. It's far too ingrained in the global economy to give it up. In every case, it is not the people who benefit from believing in these alleged inevitabilities. It is the profiteers who traffic in the hopelessness and resignation they manufacture. Once upon a time, slavery was considered an inevitable fact of daily life. We fought a war over it, and ordinary citizens below the Mason-Dixon line believed that the Southern economy would collapse without the institution of owning other human beings. In the early 20th century, people believed that working themselves to the bone in filthy, dangerous factories was just the way that life was. But with the tireless work of labor organizers, we won the 8-hour workday and the benefits that many of us workers enjoy today without even noticing. Once upon a time, the idea that a woman would ever have the right to vote, to participate in democracy, was seen as absolutely absurd. Right now, we are at a precipice as human beings. We can accept the reality that tech giants like Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk want to feed us, that it is time for us to adapt to an inevitable future where AI is embedded into every aspect of our lives, spying on us, collecting our data, selling our attention off to the highest bidder, to the point where our daily lives are nothing but an endless stream of advertisements. On the next rung down are the opportunistic owners of property, golf clubs, for example, who stand to make a modest sum of tens of millions of dollars by acting as their faithful lackeys. They will do things like lie and manipulate you to believe that data centers are actually good for you, or at the very least, not bad. I'm not going to counter their claims, but the idea that they care a whit for their community is utterly laughable. If they did, they would sell their property to build a homeless shelter, a wildlife sanctuary, a public gymnasium, a learning center for underprivileged youth. Use your imagination. The biggest lie that they need you to believe, however, is that this is inevitable. When they can't convince you that the data center will benefit you, as they surely cannot, they will convince you that it is inevitable. But the future of humanity belongs to human beings, and the future of Harford County belongs to Harford County residents.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I believe you spoke, haven't you?
Yes, I'm here to represent Regola Consulting, Inc., we're a cybersecurity company. So, I'm continuing my speech.
Speaking as a citizen and then again as a representative for an organization.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thanking our founding fathers for the First Amendment. So, I think it is obvious that a data center starting with on-site generation will eventually connect to the grid when the laws change and there is adequate transmission capability. Whether they continue operating power and pushing it into the grid or consuming it locally probably depends on the cost. Certainly the folks in Perryman are fighting enhanced generation capability in their neighborhood, and neighbors are fighting the transmission lines. So there are too many unanswered questions to permit data centers. As others pointed out, the fight is probably just getting started if the state overrides, and there's some ideas on legislation that the council can do. So I say the potential risks are enormous to the health and finances of Harford Countyans, as they could impact tens of thousands of water users, and not to mention our electricity cost. In the presentation with the data center, Maryland Data Center Alliance, Mr. Bennett asked who sponsored the Maryland Data Center Alliance. Their website shows the logos of Amazon, Turner, a construction company, and Constellation, the power company. I think this would have been the transparent answer to Mr. Bennett's question, but that's not the answer he received. So later in the video, Ms. Schultz acknowledges the limits of her knowledge outside of the talking points and states that she isn't an engineer and can't comment on PFAS in water. So Virginia requires PFAS to be treated by polluters in Fairfax Water's territory because the public was paying for PFAS cleanup as a result of data center pollution. You can look at Fairfax Water's website. I believe they also sued a number of the PFAS polluters. Virginia passed House Bill 2050 to create a special water district for Fairfax Water, where of course a lot of the data centers are. So in the future, I think Harford County citizens would prefer to hear from electrical engineers with experience in power distribution, computer engineers that can discuss hyperscale infrastructure, electricians, well drillers that know our aquifers, civil engineers with experience in water treatment and wastewater treatment, and mechanical engineers that design cooling systems. Sadly, it seems that very little has been learned from the warehouse battle that the courageous citizens launched and won. Taxpayers are better served by avoiding litigation, as the approvals for the warehouses were ultimately rescinded when the facts emerged in the litigation that went to the Maryland Supreme Court. My advice to the council president is to invite experts, not industry cheerleaders or lobbyists, so that the facts are determined earlier in the process. Citizens deserve real answers when we are talking about our land, our home, our Harford. So a few other points. People have talked a bit on Facebook about glycol cooling systems. So I think today they could theoretically be banned in Harford County via the Harford County Mechanical Code. I sent that feedback to County Executive Casserly, and he acknowledged sending it, or one of his staff, I should say, acknowledged sending that to the Department of Planning, Licensing, and Zoning for review. I also sent that to the council member from District C, since he is endorsed by P3 as the next council president. So I specifically focus on glycol cooling because, as one of the civil engineers that was here mentioned, it's mixed with the water, and then that water gets discharged. Whether that's discharged into the water, the rivers, groundwater, aquifers, is really important. And
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Todd Wetzelberger, followed by Michelle Chrisman, Evelyn Bischoff, and Carrie Kelly.
Call your first speaker again. Oh, never mind.
Todd Wetzelberger. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
21047. I am pretty cynical of dealing with the government, as probably most of you are in here. I think I have a unique perspective. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spoken tonight. I'm a real estate investor, private lender. I 100% support private property rights. Mountain Branch is zoned agricultural. Never in a million years would I have thought it would contemplate to put an industrial cooling center or data center on an agricultural property. I've gotten zoning variances. I've done all this before. It's unfathomable. Zoning laws exist for a reason. That said, my experience is in a past life, 2008 crash. I have a finance background. I became a whistleblower and a litigator exposing the multi-billion-dollar fraud at the banks. It was totally by chance, wasn't planned. And I went naively to the FBI, IRS, SEC. I think Doug Gansler was the Attorney General at the time. Special prosecutors, nobody would touch it. I decided to expose it myself, all driven by rage, people's lives immensely destroyed, and so I went down this path. And I got the death threats and the harassment and the hacking and all the stuff you can't even imagine. Met a lot of whistleblowers from NSA, CIA, World Bank, and I went down that path for about a half a decade, ended up litigating in 8 or 9 states, state, federal, bankruptcy court, appellate court. I went to Panama, doctored a case against Citibank with a Panamanian attorney. And what I found, back to these data centers, when there's this much money at stake here, they will not stop. Thank all of you for voting tonight to ban this. One gentleman mentioned about the state level. My experience is to think about what they're going to do next. I've dealt with crooked judges, crooked politicians. I can't even begin to tell you. Think about the next steps ahead, because there's so much money involved, they will not stop. So it's a win here tonight. Think about the next level at the state level, and think about the federal level, how they're going to try to steamroll over us. Think 10 steps ahead. Where's the money going to go? And my personal experience is this is a huge, huge win. There's strength in numbers, what I found. This is huge. And another thing I found is a winning strategy is the court of public opinion. I learned that from Tom Drake, who was a whistleblower at NSA. And the court of public opinion is very powerful, and the last thing is shining a big light on the corruption. And everybody here has the ability to do that, shine a big light, because what I found, and I'm mindful of my time, every time I expose crooked judges, crooked politicians, they ran when the light was shined on them. Super, super powerful. So I hope this is helpful. Think ahead, 10 steps ahead, because this is not going to stop. The owner of Mountain Branch, I invited him to a public debate, and I said, hey, anytime, any place, invite the media, crickets. So make it personal and make your voice heard. I'm so grateful for all of you coming out. And the last thing, this is literally a fight of good versus evil. And I pray to God that we all succeed. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip?
Good evening. I'm Michelle Chrisman, 21132. Thank you very much for your time. My dad volunteered for 61 years running fire and ambulance calls in Harford County, Maryland, so thank you for your 0 to 7 vote. I appreciate that. I stand here before you this evening as someone who believes deeply in what Harford County represents, family, history, and the responsibility to protect both. I'm also the legislative chair for the Harford County Republican Women and also running for Maryland House of Delegates 35A, Harford and Cecil County, Maryland. I grew up in Kingsville, Maryland. I remember clean streams, open land, and a community built by hard-working families like my mom and dad. Roads like Jerusalem Mill aren't just roads, routes on a map. They are part of our heritage, once traveled by George Washington himself. That is not just land, that is a legacy. And now we are being asked to give it up for massive data centers, industrial complexes that do not belong in rural communities, steel towers cutting through our countryside, solar farms that do not grow vegetables or grazing cattle, and battery energy storage systems. Facilities that consume enormous amounts of water, millions of gallons a day, and damage huge amounts of electricity, driving up costs for residents. We are told this is progress. But progress should not come at the cost of our history, our environment, or our quality of life. These projects threaten our farms, our property values, and our natural resources, including places like Deer Creek that we have worked so hard to preserve. They bring noise, industrial strain, and long-term consequences that cannot simply be undone. Once this land is lost, it's gone. This is not about resisting change. It is about making responsible decisions that protect the people who live here, not outside interests. The Harford County Council has a choice. Stand with the citizens by passing Bill number 26011 and putting a stop to this. I'm asking you to stand up, speak out, and make it clear. Harford County is not for sale. Once elected, I do intend to repeal SB 931 and keep land use decisions in local communities and not Annapolis bureaucrats. If we do not protect Harford County now, we will not get another chance. Again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And God bless you all.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip?
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Bischoff, and my zip code is 21047. And first, I just want to congratulate all of us and our council for being the second on the books data ban. I think that everybody's pointing out all of the how it opens doors for the state to steamroll us. And I have to say, I think, Maryland can try to steamroll us, but I have a feeling that all across this country right now, there are people fighting this exact thing. If we all band together and we all speak out and we all stand up, and if you join all of us, we can stop this. So, with that being said, I support the emergency bill 26-011 on the ban on data centers. Today, I would like to talk about jobs. You're probably going to hear from some of the union fellas tonight that want you to think that data centers will bring hundreds of jobs. Of course, most of them have left already, but whatever. I will admit there will be workers employed at every data center construction site. However, will they be workers from Harford County, Maryland? I know people that live near other data construction sites report long caravans of RVs showing up at the beginning of the construction to house workers because they do not live near the area they are working. BusinessInsider.com says construction workers often travel to data center sites and stay for extended periods of time. Has anyone ever thought about the other jobs? Fortune magazine just published an article stating big tech is desperate. Imagine that. Amazon is spending $200 billion to build data infrastructure while cutting 30,000 workers. Microsoft is spending $190 billion while laying off 30,000 corporate employees in the last 8 months. Meta dismissed 10% of its staff in May after announcing it would double its AI apex of $72 billion from 2025. and Oracle reduced its staff of 20 to 30,000 employees, which coincided with the company's $248 billion investment in future data center leases. Sounds to me like the bubble is bursting. Out of just those 4 companies, that is 87,886 jobs that have been cut. When the construction is done and the dust settles, how many permanent jobs will reside at a single data center? 20, 30? In no way will those 2 or 3 dozen jobs offset the hundreds of thousands of permanent jobs that will eventually be lost across the country. Do not let them manipulate you into thinking that they are beneficiaries bringing jobs to the masses, because they are not.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Hello, my name is Carrie Kelly, 21048, and I'm here to represent Food and Water Watch. Good evening, Council President and Council members. My name is Carrie Kelly, and I am here tonight on behalf of Food and Water Watch and a few hundred of our members and supporters across Harford County. We strongly encourage you to pass the bill banning data centers in Harford County to permanently prohibit this development in the county. Food and Water Watch is a nonprofit that works to protect the resources that our communities depend on every day, including clean water, affordable utilities, and a healthy environment. Data center development raises serious concerns about all 3. While data centers, some people like to assume, are simple like office buildings, they are large and industrial and cause astronomical effects on the community and the environment that they surround. As AI technology continues to expand, so does the demand for electrical and water facilities. And the growth places increasing pressure on local infrastructure and natural resources, infrastructure that Harford County does not currently have. Harford County should not have to risk higher utility costs, greater strain on water resources, or additional pressure on our power grid to accommodate a project whose impacts are still not fully understood. Once these facilities are built, the effects on the surrounding communities can be very difficult to reverse. I appreciate the Council's willingness to take this issue seriously and to act before these developments become a reality in our county. Protecting our residents, our resources, and our quality of life should come first. And I would like to thank you on behalf of Food and Water Watch and residents across Harford County for taking this seriously and voting yes on the bill to ban data centers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
William Blocker, followed by Debbie Schreiber, Stephanie Flash, and Sean Maloney.
Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Bill Blocker, 21085. As everybody else, I'm not going to go statistics or anything else. This is really personal. I'm here to express strong opposition to the proposed data center at Mountain Branch Golf Course. However, my purpose is not solely to oppose the proposal. It is also to encourage thoughtful consideration of more appropriate use of the land. I live on Stockton Road, approximately 1/4 mile from the golf course. My family and I have been members of Mountain Branch Golf Course for about 20 years. I have enjoyed my membership, the course itself, the people that work there. It is a fine facility. Over the years, I have participated in many tournaments and have helped to sponsor charitable events at the course. This issue is, again, deeply personal to me. However, I am deeply concerned about the potential loss of natural habitat in the area, including federally protected great blue heron, painted turtles on number 1, the monarch butterflies on the milkweed and the 4th and 5th fairways, and the pileated woodpeckers, the kingfishers, and the red-tailed hawks that nest in the woods behind the pond on number 4. This may be the end of the property's use as a golf course. However, I strongly oppose the destruction of the area for an incompatible use, particularly proposed data campus. We are all still learning about the potential environmental and public health impacts of such facilities. I'm also concerned about the potential impact on pollinators and other sensitive species that may be affected by noise, vibration, and other operational factors associated with the data center. I urge the owners and this council to consider alternatives that are environmentally responsible, compatible with surrounding neighborhoods, and protective of public health and property values. I ask the council to consider a broader question. Baltimore County owns 5 golf courses. Harford County has 0. Should Harford County explore preserving this property as a recreational or public asset that would serve residents now and in the future? I disagree with the proposal to convert this property into a data center. Instead, I encourage all parties to look forward and identify a use that preserves this beauty and environmental value, community benefit, rather than allowing it to become a detriment to our homes and our environment. Bring on the state. Let's do it.
Thank you, sir. Good
Hello,
evening, ma'am.
everyone. Debbie Schreiber, 21047. I was going to thank the fire and EMS for all their work 24/7 protecting us, but I believe they've left. Tonight, we vote for a bill to ban data centers in Harford County. I have lived in Fallston for 48 years. Many years ago, there was an article in the newspaper titled, Fallston, the best kept secret, and all I thought was, why are you telling everyone? Now, decades later, we have been fighting together as a community to keep our land rural. The Mountain Branch property is zone ag. The definition of zoning refers to local government laws and regulations that dictate how physical land and property can be used within a specific geographic area. It partitions the county into zones to ensure development is orderly, safe, compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. Yes, our best-kept secret is now a developer's dream. While progress is inevitable and the so-called data campus will change our landscape forever, there will be no going back once this is done. I, like most of all the people here tonight, live in that area that will hear the 24/7 humming, and what about our water sources, considering we all live on well water. In closing, this is not the place for a data center, now or ever. There is a right place and a right time, and this property is neither. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Stephanie Flash, 21047. I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Harford. So since 1997, Friends of Harford has worked to give citizens a voice in land use decisions that affect our communities, natural resources, and infrastructure, and especially our quality of life. And Friends of Harford supports this bill to prohibit the permitted use in any zoning district. Harford County supports balancing growth with preserving agricultural land, open space, natural resources, and our community character. And these priorities are already reflected in what our county council has put forward regarding the master land use plan, zoning regulations, agricultural preservation programs, and recently completed the comprehensive rezoning process. Two planning efforts should guide this council on this decision. First, Harford County's master land use plan is now entering the update process, and it will establish county legislation long-term vision for growth, preservation, infrastructure, and our community character. So residents should have the opportunity to participate in shaping the vision and discussing the long-term implications of emerging land uses in our county. Second, the recently completed comprehensive rezoning provided a countywide evaluation on land use and development intensity already. And through that process, the county carefully considered where growth should occur and the level of intensity appropriate in the various areas, and that was not upzoned. Friends of Harford believes that huge data centers like the one proposed represents a land use that is fundamentally different in scale, infrastructure demands, and long-term impacts of the types of developments permitted through our planning efforts. And so the potential of the impacts on our agricultural land, infrastructure planning, natural resources, community character warrant careful consideration by the context of the county's long-term planning for our growth. Bill 26011 supports Harford County's longstanding commitment to protecting these areas and preserving our community character. We need to plan for growth in a manner that reflects the values and priorities in establishing within our master land use plan already. For these reasons, Friends of Harford respectfully urges you to support 26-011. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Vincente and the rest of the council. Sean Maloney, 21085. I'm currently building a new house in 21047. Starting to worry it was a bad decision, so I appreciate your ban on this. Put me back in a good frame of mind. As a small business owner and president of an association that represents over 200 contractors, I work with the PSC, the utility companies, and legislators at the state level to advocate on behalf of what's best for the ratepayers of the state of Maryland in their legislation. I've always hated to say I told you so in my testimony, but I've had no problem doing it. I spoke with U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen about 4 years ago, and I warned him that the newly passed Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022 would cause sky-high utility rates and rolling blackouts and brownouts. I told him that I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that voters don't like sky-high utility rates and blackouts and brownouts. He came out the following week and recommended that we look more into it, so I like to think that I had something to do with that. But here we are today, and I told you so, but we're pushing forward anyway. Governor Moore has increased the already aggressive goals of that legislation, including full electrification of the state of Maryland, including the ban of gas-powered vehicles in 2035, and the ban on the sale of gas, oil, and propane heating systems and water heaters in 2029. This was all before data centers came into the equation, which has exponentially compounded the impending problems. But Governor Moore apparently doesn't have the same fear of it being an election year as some in this room do. After the recently vetoed 2 bipartisan bills to perform studies on data centers and their effects in Maryland, his veto was overturned, which shows you that even in Maryland, the system works in an election year. You see, money talks, but money doesn't vote. Data centers may bring in substantial amounts of revenue, but the voters of Harford County and recently Baltimore County as well, with their moratorium, have recognized that they also bring in the many obvious problems with an increasing likelihood that not only in the hottest weather, but as more and more electricity is required for heating systems and EV charging, there will be blackouts and brownouts in extreme cold weather as well. As a result, since it will take billions of dollars in infrastructure upgrades that we don't have and can't afford, especially with the horrendous amortization deals that multiply the costs at our expense through our utility bills, so legislators can impress high-dollar donors from special interest groups. I appreciate your likely unanimous vote on the ban at the county level tonight, but this is not the end. After the ban, the data center lobbyists and lawyers will ultimately push the state legislature for a ban on data center bans at those county levels. So I want to remind and recommend to people to reach out to their local delegates and senators to make them aware of how important this is to you as their constituents. I've spoken to multiple legislators that I've worked with over the years and recommended to them the importance of this issue that will be on par with the utility rate issue that's dominated election year politics for the last several months. The council should have letters in support for the ban from Senator J.B. Jennings and delegates Teresa Riley, Ryan Naraki, and Kathy Schlega, to name a few. So do your part and reach out to your representatives, make your voices heard, and also talk to people that you know who live in other counties, who have other delegates and other senators, and let them know how important, if it can happen in Harford County, it can happen there as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Don Rossi, followed by Angelia Galati.
I don't know if the previous person came up.
Yeah.
I'm Anjali Galati, here from 21009. Good evening, esteemed council members and fellow Harford County residents. I'm here representing the organization I work with, Interfaith Power and Light DMV, which is a faith-based nonprofit working with congregations across the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia region to respond to climate change and to protect our climate, environment, and communities. This is very close to home, as I was, born and raised right in Abingdon, right off Singer Road, with the woods in my backyard, touching the woods that are behind the golf course. While I now live in Baltimore City, Harford County will always be home. And, driving past Mountain Branch Golf Club nearly every day, I've been around the world. Nowhere is more scenically beautiful than our shared home here in Harford County. From the landscapes, the waterways, farms, and communities of this county that's shaped who I am. So that's why I'm here tonight in support of the proposed ban on hyperscale data centers. The people of faith, we're called to be good stewards of creation and to leave future generations a world that is healthy, livable, and abundant. That responsibility requires us to carefully consider projects that would place extraordinary demands on our land, water, and energy systems. We don't really have to speculate about what these facilities can mean for communities because we've already seen it in Northern Virginia, just down the road, where hyperscale data center development has transformed entire landscapes and placed enormous pressure on energy infrastructure. Maryland residents are already struggling with some of the sharpest utility bill increases in the country. Adding massive new electricity demands to an already strained grid raises serious questions about affordability, reliability, and ultimately who bears the cost. Water is another major concern. Data centers can consume millions of gallons of water annually for cooling, and even where operators promise efficient technologies, those commitments can change over time. We don't have the regulations in place to mandate those. And once construction begins, local governments have much more limited leverage to address the unforeseen impacts. Harford County shouldn't gamble with the resources that families, farms, ecosystems, and future generations depend upon. Residents across the country have also reported significant quality of life impacts from data centers, including constant noise from cooling equipment and backup generators. Beyond the impacts on nearby neighborhoods, persistent industrial noise can disrupt wildlife, including pollinators and other species that are essential to healthy ecosystems and food systems. We're constantly told that rapid AI expansion is inevitable and what we need, and we simply must accommodate. But what we actually need is water and food and air to breathe and land to live on. And we know that where data centers are built, all of these are negatively impacted. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Brian Cornell, followed by Lisa Mathis, Jessica Riley Hammond, and Christy Heisey.
Call the first one again.
Brian Cornell.
Stop.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Brian Cornell, 21085. What we experienced in the last 2 months, I like to compare to what I imagine feels like getting smashed by a once-in-a-lifetime storm. Our small community was rocked by this unexpected storm and immediately went into action by going door to door, checking on everyone to see if they were okay. And then our small community quickly grew and spread across the county and into neighboring counties. Neighbors started coming out of their homes and started supporting one another, shaking hands and hugging folks that they've lived down the road from their entire lives. And some were meeting for the very first time, but they all had the same concerns. Looking back, I would never wish these circumstances on any community, but in a strange way, I'm very thankful for this chapter in my life. I'm thankful for the lifelong friendships and the bond that has been forged from being in the trenches together. There are many new friends sitting in this room tonight that have each other's backs, and we never would have met if this storm never showed up. I'd like to say something else about another neighbor that we share, and I like to reference scripture to help explain. In the book of Luke, there's a situation where an expert of the law challenges Jesus. He asked Jesus, "What must I do to gain eternal life?" Jesus' answer was simple, but probably somewhat annoying to the expert. Jesus simply said, "Love God with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind." And then Jesus added one more command: love your neighbor. With that said, I'd like to reiterate something that we prayed about the first time we met up as a group. We prayed for Bill, the owner of Mountain Branch. We prayed because we learned that Bill has been struggling as a business owner. And it was difficult to know that one of our neighbors was struggling, even though we didn't agree with his plans for a solution. I just want Bill to know that he is my neighbor, who I also care about. We are just trying to do what we know is right for all our families and all our neighbors for generations to come. So that brings us to tonight and the decision that we must make. Let me just admit that sometimes as I listen to the local news, I wonder if there is a perfect place in this country to live. In these moments, I often look past our neighborhoods imagining that perfect place. But tonight we have an opportunity to lead our state. We have an opportunity to be the first county in the state and the second county in the nation to ban data center development and boldly say there are some things that you just can't put a price tag on. With that said, knowing that there really is only one perfect place that we're all trying to get to, I believe that a very special great place might just be right under our nose.
Brian, your time's up.
That great place to live and raise a family that is worth protecting is our land, our home, and our Harford County.
Thank you. Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip?
Lisa Mathis, 21085. A happy, productive, thriving community is what we all want. And a community like that that has trust in their local government, in the people around them, in their neighborhoods, it's priceless. As a newborn, I came home from the hospital to Olney Farm, which is between Stockton and Old Joppa Road, and I live there now. Multiple generations of my family have lived there on the farm. It's a working farm. My cousin Kate keeps it thriving. When we grew up, we were like my cousins and my siblings and I, we were like a pack of hoodlums running around, climbing trees, playing in the streams. We turn around now and we say, what? Where were our mothers? Did they not know what we were doing? You know, we climbed up in the hay barn, fell out of the hay barn. My brother taught me how to drive a tractor. I couldn't figure out the brakes, and I did happen to go halfway over a pile of firewood. I lived. Anyway, many people in Harford County grew up like this. At least I think so. It's part of what we are. It's a rural county. It's beautiful. It's full of history and agriculture. My cousin, Kate, who runs a good bit of Olney Farm, she has summer camps, summer equestrian camps. She also has farm camp for little kids. My niece and nephew from Nashville come up because these kids get to experience what it's like to live on a farm. They get to play in the streams, catch minnows, crayfish. They get to forage around and pick up acorns and see what they can do with them. They get to make butter. They play with the ponies. They ride the ponies. You know, when we were growing up, we rode Shetlands. We used to go out in the field and put a little rope on them and ride around the fields. Grateful we didn't break our necks. We'd like to keep that. I'm grateful to the council for passing this bill tonight. I hope you haven't changed your minds. But our trust has been shaken. The misinformation or the omission of information on the data center that they've proposed. You know, I'm getting pretty darn tired of hearing about this magic closed loop system. You know, it didn't take that much sleuthing for me to figure out that it does have to be flushed. You know, as it's been pointed out multiple times, we don't have public water and sewer out there. So let's not brush it all under the rug. Well, I'm running out of time. Chuck's golly. I'd just like to say it would be nice to stand firm and preserve
Thank you, ma'am.
agricultural zoning.
Thank you.
Jessica Riley Hammond, followed by Christy Heisey and Ellie Pawnee.
Good
Good evening,
evening.
ma'am.
Jessica Riley Hammond, Bel Air 21015. I'm a candidate for County Council in District C as well. Lisa, I don't know where you went, but I want you to know I learned how to ride it only as a child. I wholeheartedly support this ban. Harford County has made its position clear, and it's just the right thing to do. Residents have shown up, spoken out, and repeatedly said they do not want large-scale data centers in our community. This is not about being anti-technology. It's about protecting our water, our farmland, our natural environment, our infrastructure, and the character of our county. Once these facilities are built, the impacts can last for decades. Tonight, we have an opportunity to put our community first and provide certainty to the many residents that have been asking for it. I urge you to vote in favor of the ban, and luckily, I believe you will. The next step will be pushing for this at the state level, which I've already begun doing. I spoke to Delegate Susan McComas on the phone yesterday. I've been in touch with Mary Delaney James. This is going to require probably more of a fight than we've already had so far. The encouraging thing is how organized and strong our community has been. I have to say, I started posting about this on social media, and Bill Poulsen here got in touch with me, I believe, and invited me to the meeting that I went to at Brian Cornell's farm. And all I knew was that a community member was asking me to come do something that was important. I was already really into the data center situation. I didn't know the people. I knew it was at someone's house. I was afraid I might be murdered, but it was that important that I went anyway. And here I am, I'm alive and well, and I've met these wonderful people in this wonderful organization. So I want to thank you all for inviting me, for coming together to fight this, and just know that I'm here with you, and we're going to need to keep doing this going forward. And there's no reason to wait. Start the fight now at the state level. Thank you, and thank you all for supporting the ban.
Thank you, ma'am. Not worried at all. Good evening, ma'am. Name and zip.
Christine Heisey, 21047. I have been in Harford County my entire life, which is more years than I want to admit. I remember when Box Hill was a dirt track for a long time. Our whole lives we learn that we're stewards of the Chesapeake Bay. And we want to put this data center in an area where it's going to impact all of our rivers. We've got the Gunpowder, we've got Deer Creek, we've got Winters Run, we've got the Susquehanna. It's not going to be limited to this 6 miles that they show on maps. There's going to be things that are going to happen. They've talked about the increase in the temperatures. What is that going to do overall? How is this going to fan out? What's it going to do to the bay? What's it going to do to the crab population? What's it going to do to the bass population? There's a lot more things involved here. If you look at the maps of all the data centers in the US, this just kind of clicked for me earlier tonight, we talk all about global warming. Maybe there's a lot more to it than the cows. Maybe it has something to do with the data centers, and they're just not going to tell us. You know, the key people at the top are making decisions for all of us. They're multi-billionaires, trillionaires, and they have an end game, and we're just little ants in that end game. They really don't care. So what is this push for all of these data centers? Why do we need all of this? We really don't. I don't need to be told at every training that I go to for real estate that I need to use AI, that I need to make it create songs for me, that I need it to do this, that, and the other thing. The big thing with all of those trainings that I go to, the big concern everybody has is they say the public wants to know what's real. And down the road, we're not going to know what's real. They want to see people in the flesh. We don't need more AI. As far as Mountain Branch goes, it's just a sad situation, and I feel bad for the owner that he's mismanaged things the way that he has. He should not be in this situation. He's told us a lot of things and made a lot of promises. I feel like he's a two-tongued snake. I love eating at Mountain Branch. I go there a lot, you know, but I just don't feel that he would ever follow through on anything that he's promised. From a real estate standpoint, I had a lot of people tonight ask me what would happen to the values of their homes. Would they be able to sell their homes in the Fallston area, Joppa area? I pulled numbers a couple weeks ago, and I want to say that probably between 21047, 21085, 21009, 210, is it 13 for Kingsville? 18. That, there's about 7,000 homes. I don't know how that aquifer moves under that, but we are all well and septic. So sure as we're all here, that water's gonna get contaminated. There's wells that are gonna go dry, and there's people's perks that are gonna fail. And then what do we do? What do you do with those houses? Nobody's gonna want them. It's a huge tax base. So please don't turn your back on the people of those areas. Please vote for this ban, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Ellie Tawney, 21085. Good evening, council members, member of the community, friends, family, and special guests. My name is Ellie Tawney. I am 16 years old, and I am a rising junior in high school. My whole life, I've lived in this area and will always consider this slice of Maryland my home. Harford County has a special place in my heart with its beautiful farmland and dense woods. I love how Harford is not crowded with tall buildings and apartments. Even though, yes, there are big neighborhoods, they are not very crowded and there are still trees wherever you look. Growing up in a more rural area, I learned a lot about life, like how to get my hands dirty, take care of myself, ride horses at Only Farm, hunt, fish, and how to be a master at playing tag in the woods. All jokes aside, for now, if these data centers were to be built on land that's covered by trees and on land that's used for agriculture, not only would it ruin Harford, but the damage to the environment would be detrimental. Mass removal of trees takes away habitats for wildlife, putting their lives in danger. With less woods, more deer would wander into heavily populated areas and roads, causing more car accidents and harm to the community. Along with biodiversity going down, carbon emissions would go up. There would be soil erosion and altered microclimate, and property value would drop significantly. Now I ask you, are you willing to destroy woods and farmland for something like data centers? Data centers also produce loud noise, which would cause even more problems for our community. Besides destroying the environment, you'd be destroying the lives of generations to come. No farmland means no petting zoos where kids can experience animals and get hands-on experience. No woods means kids won't go outside, climb trees, ride horses, or learn how to hunt and fish. You'd be setting up future generations for failure. So what I ask from all of you is to look into your heart and ask yourself, are these data centers really necessary in Harford County and worth the cost of our children? Please pass the emergency legislation to ban data centers in Harford County. Doing so will honor the present and protect our future, because this is our land, our home, our Harford. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Paul DiMonato and Matthew Brown.
Paul DiMonato, 21014. First, I'm going to start with Jimmy was right. Harford County, we do have more data centers than a lot of people are aware of. There's, depending upon the standards bodies, there's 4 to 5 different tiers of data centers, with the smallest being only a couple hundred square feet. I am adamantly opposed to Harford County hosting hyperscale data centers, the size and mass of those in Loudoun County. Bill 26-011 as written and introduced is flawed. Maybe it was a rush by the county administration with little consultation to score political points in an election year. They said during the testimony that they researched it comprehensively. There's some flaws in the definition that they're using. The bill text, a data center shall be defined as a building or a group of buildings, a substantial portion of which is used to house computer systems, computer storage equipment, network systems, and associated infrastructure that individuals or entities use to organize, process, store, and disseminate voluminous amounts of data, often for a fee. Who in the room has a smartphone? Who has internet to your house? A lot of people don't realize a cell tower actually has a building behind it that is roughly 200 to 400 square feet. The building is dedicated with nothing but racks of computer equipment, carrier equipment. This ban means no more cell towers. Not the towers themselves, but the carrier equipment that feeds our cell phones to work. Edge processing nodes, internet going to your house, the old telephone switch buildings. So South A Street in Bel Air, the brick building from Verizon, that is a data center. The old telephone switches, what it was all copper and everything, it's now software-defined networking. It's all software-based equipment racks, computer equipment, network equipment. Jimmy was right. We have a lot of those buildings around. There means no more expansion in our county. It means you could forget about technology upgrades. If we get new cell phones, we're going to be in the dark ages. Now, I'm not advocating that we don't do the ban. I'm advocating that we actually amend our ban language. Some of the ban language out there actually put some size limitations and power consumption and that type of stuff. Aberdeen Proving Ground is the largest employer in Harford County with 21,000 civilians, military and contractors, supporting an army across technology, spectrum, and innovation. There is a large push for partnerships with industry, a move towards commercial technology to include pilot programs and commercial connectivity, not just on the post, but also in the surrounding areas. This will severely limit Harford County's ability to support our largest employer if they go that route. The ban's going to be challenged in court. We've already heard that. Our present county administration seems to always want to go to court as a norm, wasting our taxpayer dollars, and they don't have a stellar record. I would have rather seen the moratorium that Councilman Bennett proposed with very strict zoning criteria based on residential proximity to residential zones, environmental protections, infrastructure support, noise, size limitations. I'm all for the ban, but I think we have to amend it.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Name and zip.
Matthew Brown, 21015. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Brown. I'm one of your primary county executive candidates, and I don't want to rehash what we've talked about for hours now when it comes to data center, but I've spoken to a lot at this time, being here almost weekly. We talk about an issue when it's arrived, been very reactionary. We speak about proactiveness, but what I'd like to speak on is, how did we get here? Does anyone know the man named Chris Wright? That is your current Secretary of Energy. That is the man appointed in February 3rd, 2025 by the current administration who has been at the forefront of this data center movement. In fact, February 12th, on our own WB Baltimore, he spoke to how data centers would not lead to increased pricing in energy, not to lead to increased costs of housing. He's at the forefront of saying that this is not going to hurt the average American. He's been at the forefront of combating everyone's favorite governor here. In fact, the bill that was passed with the utilization of energy was made to directly combat the push for data centers. Am I trying to say that everything our governor has done is correct? Absolutely not. I disagree with him too. But what I am hearing is a lot of people are not going far enough. A lot of people say this is just the beginning, and that is correct. It's not just the state. It's the federal level. It's the person in charge of the entirety of American energy who's been pushing for these data centers and privatizing our energy. He has made it his mission that he wants to push this for the betterment of America in his mind. And like you said, you feel like you're getting bullied. You feel like the state is pushing you aside and disregarding your feelings for your area. But is it truly the state? Did you dig deep enough? Because ultimately speaking, our governor is trying, but just as the county can be bullied by the state can be bullied by the federal government. And I would hope people would do a little more due diligence to realize, where does stuff start? There's always a beginning that we overlook because we're too focused on the now. And the other thing I want to highlight is, while I'm amazed at the level of participation, involvement, groups, everything being done to preserve Harford County, I want to see that same level of energy in progressing the county. Where are the people speaking to transportation? There was a whole thing when it comes to transportation reform or transportation bill months ago. Haven't heard a peep about it. There was issues bringing up when it comes to regulating the school board. We've had that back and forth, of course. What about the loss of the hospital, how that's affecting senior living homes and their ability to get their medication and their care? Where is that? And this is not, I would say, a fault of the county council itself. I would say it's about our priorities. We all unanimously agree that we don't want the data centers. We've been talking about this for 2 months now. It was pretty much a unanimous decision. But where is the time and energy spent to what is actively needed in the county right now? I understand preserving the identity of Harford County. I want to do that too in my capacity as county executive. But I also want to make sure that we look at the active problems currently facing before the problems that appear. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. President.
With no more speakers, before I conclude this public hearing, I want to take a minute, Council, if I may, and recognize Senator J.B. Jennings in the audience. J.B., I don't know if you want to say anything, but you're more than welcome if you'd like to on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Maybe I should come in a couple minutes later so I didn't have to do this. Now, this is a tough subject. I've listened, I've been at sports with my son listening to you guys on my phone, so thank you for broadcasting it. This is, as I said, it's a tough subject. Data centers are tough. It's a needed commodity that we unfortunately need in the world we live in. The question is, where are they going to go? Do they belong at Mountain Branch? No. Do they belong in rural areas? No. They belong in industrial areas, places like Trade Point Atlantic, which was Sparrows Point. That's a place where you should put a data center. Before you do it, you've got to make sure we have the electricity to power them. And of course, the water issues that we've dealt with. The only concern I have is with Aberdeen Proving Grounds, with CCOM being located there, and what this legislation may do. I support the legislation with amendments, and you've heard some of them. Data centers, I live off of, for the record, I live at 21085 in Joppa. I hear the music from Mountain Branch on Friday nights and Saturday nights when he has his concerts. But right on Route 7, there's a data center. What it is, it's a Verizon switching center. That's categorized as a data center. So I think, as it's been said before, we need to make sure you do this legislation correctly with what type of data center you're trying to go after, because with the wrong type of terminology, you're going to be shutting down a lot of other stuff that shouldn't be. We're going to have to come back and open this thing up. But, for the record, this is something, unfortunately, we're going to deal with in Annapolis this upcoming session. We dealt with it unfortunately, we're dealing with it with the solar farms, with the way that the state took the county jurisdiction out of it. But I will tell you this, my colleagues regret what they have done. I've listened to them because it's affecting a lot of their jurisdictions. Data centers last session came up because they were trying to put some out in the western part of, West Baltimore County in the Reynoldstown area, and it was amazing to watch these legislators jump up and try to ban them right away. And that's when, a different part of the county that I represent, because I represent both Baltimore and Harford County. So the legislators have realized there's been a mistake. We saw that Governor Moore, and I did write a letter to the council, which is on my Facebook page, you can read, with all my insight on this. And I was not prepared to speak. I just kind of wanted to come in and listen, so I don't have any notes here. It's always better when you write the AI-generated notes. You sound more professional. But we are going to address this most probably this next session. And the goal is not to take local jurisdiction out of it. I will not support that. It is up to county council. You guys do zoning. We don't in the state. And I think that's the issue you're going to need. And, I'm going to have to ask each and every one of you to pay attention come the second Wednesday of January when session starts of what legislation's coming out. We did pass several bills last session, 2 sessions ago, 2025, that the governor vetoed. But the legislature did come back and override those vetoes that said no. We talked about it, somebody talked about it earlier this evening about the study. We're waiting on that. We're waiting to see. But I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate the council listening to this. All I'm saying is that, we got to look closer at the legislation on the technicalities of what data centers are and what you're trying to ban, because otherwise it's going to be too broad, and I think we're going to be tied up in court. So thank you for your time, Mr. President.
Thank you, JB. Thank you for coming out. All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing for Bill 2611, and we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Chair calls to order legislative session day 26019. Would ask you to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by the opening prayer by Council Vice President Jan Giordano. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, as we gather this evening to serve the people of our county, we ask for your wisdom, guidance, and understanding. Help us to work together with respect and integrity as we make decisions for the good of our community. Tonight, we lift up Baltimore County Police Officer who was shot in the line of duty and the innocent bystander who was injured. We pray for their healing, strength, and recovery, and for comfort and peace for their families and loved ones. We also ask for your protection over all law enforcement officers, first responders, and those who dedicate their lives to serving and protecting others. Guide this council in our work tonight. May our words and actions reflect compassion, fairness, and a shared commitment to the people we are honored to serve. We ask you for your continued blessing upon our community and our nation. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Agenda number 4, presentation of proclamations. We have none. 5, consideration of petitions, applications, appointments, and nominations. We have none. 6, special presentations. We have none. 7, approval of minutes. Zoning Board of Appeals case number 6002, Matthew Watson, public hearing June 2nd, 2026. Legislative day 26-018, June 2nd, 2026. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Council, may I have general consent to move to items 9 through 12 on the agenda and then return to item 8 thereafter?
So be it.
9, introduction of bills. We have none. 10, introduction and consideration of amendments. Mr. Jan Giordano, please read memorandum of change 1 through 3 to resolution 01126 into the record for introduction.
Memorandum of change number 1 to resolution 11-26, program fiscal year 2027 to 2032, project Regional Workforce Training Center. This memorandum of change corrects the project title to Regional Workforce Training Center to align with the budget ordinance and the bond bill. Memorandum of change number 2 to resolution 011-26, capital fiscal years 2027 to 2032, project Choptown Area Watershed Restoration. This memorandum of change corrects the project title to Choptown Area Watershed Restoration to align with the budget ordinance and bond bill. Memorandum of change number 3, resolution 011-26, capital fiscal years 2027 to 2032, project County Watershed Restoration Improvements. This memorandum of change corrects the project title to County Watershed Restorations Improvement to align with the budget ordinance and the bond bill.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd, you want to come forward, please? Ms. Sullivan? Mr. Sandless, even. I didn't see you.
Jimmy, was that fast enough?
Yes. Good evening.
So yes, these 3 memorandums of change just update the project names to match what's in the bond bill and the budget ordinance, and just for consistency reasons.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Due to the timing, we are considering this memorandum of change this evening. May I have a motion,
Council
please?
President, I move to remove memorandum of change 1 through 3 to resolution 011-26, fiscal year 27 capital improvement program.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Riley.
You do better when you read it faster.
It's been moved and seconded to approve memorandum of change resolutions 01126. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Giangiordano? Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye. Even in our speed.
There be 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Memorandum of change to resolution 01126 is hereby approved. Mr. Jan Giordano, please read amendments 29 through 37 to Bill 26-018 26-006 into the record for introduction.
Amendments 29 to 37 to Bill Number 26-006, Annual Budget and Appropriation Ordinance, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. Amendment 29 on page 35 in line 13, strike $111,440,000 and substitute $106,440,000. Amendment 30 on page 35 in line 12, strike $3,500,000 and substitute 0. Amendment 31 on page 35 in line 21, strike $222,385,000 and substitute $213,885,000. Amendment 32 on page 37 in line 15, strike $222,385,000 and substitute $213,885,000. Amendment number 33 on page 45 in line 15, strike $364,514,265 and substitute $356,014,265. Amendment 34 on page 59 on line 16, strike $8,856,000 and substitute $5,356,000. Amendment 35 on page 59 on line 17, strike $111,440,000 and substitute $106,440,000. Amendment 36 on page 59 on line 23, strike $222,385,000 and substitute $213,885,000. Amendment 37 on page 59 and line 24, strike $222,386,000 and substitute $213,885,000.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
So these are the balancing amendments that are the result of the prior amendments that have been approved by the council, just to make sure that the budget ordinance balances and that the numbers add up.
Council, anyone have any questions? Again, due to the timing, we were considering these amendments this evening. So Amendment 29, voting block 1, may I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Amendment 29 to Bill 26-006.
May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve voting block 1. Is there any discussion? Mr. Giangiordano.
Yes, sir, Council President. Tuesday night, the majority of the Harford County Council last week voted to take $2,325,000 away from the county. Critical county priorities, including legal efforts to fight the proposed Conestoga Power Project and Norrisville cybersecurity investments that protect residents and personal information. Why? To send more payment tax dollars to Harford County Public Schools. Councilman Riley and I were the only ones who voted against it. What's most troubling is that just one day earlier, retired HCPS accountability supervisor Phil Snyder, 26-year veteran of the school system, publicly exposed concerns about an administrative spending, including $371,000 for conferences, massive administrative pay increases, and questionable work from home no-show practices. Part of that is that this includes a Hartford County Public Schools ratified a compensation package that included both COLA and market adjustments. And apparently there's something like maybe a Me Too provision extending increases across multiple bargaining units. The claim that the central office remained position neutral deserves closer scrutiny. While the number of the positions may have not increased, significant salary increases appear to have resulted from reclassifying positions into higher pay grades. Position neutral does not mean cost neutral. Harford County is not Montgomery County, Prince George's County, or Baltimore City. Student population is roughly 1/3 the size of those larger districts. Taxpayers deserve to know why central office positions are being reclassified to higher salary grades and what the cost will be. The public should have full transparency on these increases and their long-term impact on the county budget. But going back here, the allegations did not come from a political activist or an outside critic. They came from a 26-year veteran of the school system's accountability office, a professional whose career was dedicated to ensuring transparency and responsible stewardship of taxpayer resources. Despite these serious allegations, the council received no communication from HCPS, the superintendent, Council Liaison Jacob Bennett, before voting to approve the additional funding. So taxpayers deserve answers before millions are handed over, not after. It's unfortunate that the money got transferred. Jacob should have recused himself on these things too, and he did not. But anyway, thank you, Council President.
Anyone else? Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Amendment 29 to Bill 26006 is hereby approved. Amendment 30, voting block 2. May I have a motion?
Council President, move to approve Amendment 30 to Bill 26-006.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve voting block 2. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff? Aye. Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Amendment 30 to Bill 26006 is hereby approved. Amendments 31 through 33, voting block 3. May I have a motion?
Council President, move to approve Amendments 31 through 33 to Bill 26-006.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to move voting block number 3. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Amendments 31 through 33 to 2606 are hereby approved. Amendments 34 through 37, voting block 4. May I have a motion?
Council President, move to approve Amendments 34 through 37 to Bill 26-006.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Moved and second to approve Amendments 34 through 37, voting block 4. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, amendments through 34 through 37 to Bill 26006 are hereby approved. Mr. Giangiordano, please read amendments 14 and 15 to Bill 26008 into the record for introduction.
Amendments 14 and 15 to Bill 26-008, Bond Authorization CPI, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. Amendment 14 on the title page, strike Bill number 26-006 in the 7th line of the title paragraph and substitute Bill number 26-006 as amended. Amendment number 15 on page 1, strike beginning with Bill number in line 17 down through 26-005 in line 18 and substitute Bill number 26-006 as amended.
Amendments 14 through 15 to Bill 26008, fiscal year 27 capital improvement program. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve amendments 14 and 15 to Bill 26-008, bond authorization CPI.
May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve amendments 14 and 15 to Bill 26008. Is there any discussion? Mr. Lloyd, anything you want to add or anything? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, amendments 14 and 15 to Bill 26008 are hereby approved. 11, call for final reading of bills. Bill 26006, annual budget and appropriation ordinance as amended. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Bill 26006, annual budget and appropriation ordinance as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Bill 26006 as amended has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bennett?
Mr. President, I just want to say, this isn't the budget I would write, but also that's not my job, thank goodness. And of the 4 budgets that's been proposed to us in the past 4 years, this is the one I feel most comfortable with. I'm thankful that the community college is going to get an increase in funding for the first time in 4 years. I'm thankful to see the libraries get increased funding. I'm thankful to see our nonprofits continue to be supported. I'm thankful that our volunteer fire companies are being fully funded according to the formula for the first time, which is very exciting for all companies to be fully funded, and in many cases above the formula in their funding levels. It's not everything I would want to see in the budget. I want to continue to see farther work on supporting the city of Aberdeen to have an adequate activity center. I want to see work done to prepare ourselves for career fire down the line. And I want to understand how we can have such wild fluctuations in budgeted versus actuals many years in a row. But that being said, can't let perfect get in the way of good, and I feel okay about where this budget lands.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff? Aye. Mr. Giordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 26006, as amended, is hereby approved. I want to commend all of you for the job that you did, as we talked about before, so, and your teams for sure. Bill 26007, revised prior year bond bills. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Bill 26-007, revised prior year bond bills.
Have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and second to approve Bill 26007, revised prior year bond bills. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff? Aye. Mr. Giordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 26007 is hereby approved. Bill 26008, bond authorization CP as amended. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Bill 26-008, bond authorization CPI as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve Bill 26008 as amended. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 26008 as amended is hereby approved. Bill 26010, LoSAP Amendment Service Benefit. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Bill 26-010, LoSAP Amendment Service Benefits.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve Bill 26010 Amendment for LoSAP. Is there any other discussion? I think we kind of talked about it quite a bit, but we do appreciate everything they do. And as we're sitting here tonight, all we do is hear sirens running again. So, Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 26010 is hereby approved. Bill 26011, zoning data centers as amended. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Bill 26-011, zoning data centers as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Bill 26011 as amended. Is there any discussion? Mr. Giordano?
Definitely for the data centers, there was some other conversations I had earlier today with Megan about defining data centers a little bit more, as we've heard some people talk about, and maybe saying that they're artificial intelligence, AI computing, hyperscale computing, cloud computing, high performance computing, HPC, server hosting or service farm, digital information storage management, and a couple other things. So I know going forward, once this is passed, we're going to look down the road to maybe tighten this stuff up, talk to some different people, and see what else we have to do to make sure that this is, we cross everything, but I want to make sure this gets through tonight. So definitely full support of this. Just want to make sure that some people know there was other things we're looking at, but wanted to get this through.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. Mr. Bennett?
Yeah, I echo the Council Vice President's remarks. I know the original version of this bill sent over to us, Ms. Alleggi sent back because it basically would have banned any building that has a computer inside of it. And so this was the better version that we received. It definitely, all for the intent, but we do have to clean up the definitions, and that's work that is going to take time, and making sure we get that language right so that we don't find ourselves in the courts or having unintended consequences. But for now, this is awesome to have in place, and we can then take the time to fix it without worrying about what could come in the meantime.
Anyone else? I just want to take a minute again to thank everyone for their patience this evening. I don't know what the total number was of in attendance, but I do know the chamber was packed, and we probably had 60 or 70 people standing on the street waiting to get in. And I want to appreciate the fact that you got up and gave seats to the firefighters so they could come in and listen to their public hearing and participate. And then when they left, you guys came back in. So I really appreciate that. Any other discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolton?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
I'm
Being-
sorry.
The person you should really apologize to is his wife.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 26-011 as amended is hereby approved. 12, enrollment of bills. Bills 26006 as amended, 26007, 26008 as amended, 26010, and 26011 as amended all serve as the text finally passed. Back to 8. Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Resolutions 01026, adoption of property tax rate. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Resolution 10-26, adoption of property tax rate.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 01026. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Resolution 01026 is hereby approved. Resolution 01126, fiscal year 27 capital improvement program as amended. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Resolution 011-26, fiscal year 27 capital improvement program as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 01126 as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Resolution 01126 as amended is hereby approved. 13, unfinished business, we have none. 14, new business, council letter of opposition, Public Service Commission case 9847, Chaberton Solar Peters Holding LLC. Ms. Imhoff.
Council President, I move to approve the council letter of opposition.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. It's been moved and seconded to approve the letter of opposition. Is there any discussion? Ms. Imhoff.
I just appreciate that we are likely to have unanimous support in this letter of opposition. Like I shared last week, I was able to attend a CAB meeting where they talked about the concerns for the Chaberton Solar Peters project. And there was a lot of community engagement, including members from, well, actually the captain from the local volunteer fire company who expressed their concerns about this type of project in that location. Never mind the fact that there are some major environmental concerns. And so I think it's just a great step forward that we are having this unanimous vote.
Anyone else? Mr. Bennett.
I just want to say for the record that I am someone who's staunchly pro-solar. As you know, Tony likes to point out, I drive an electric car that's charged by the solar panels on my roof. But I think what this letter does in asking for the Maryland Public Service Commission to come and hear out our community, to look at the comments presented by the council and by the county government, and to consider our local zoning and what our local community asks for is important and a reasonable ask. And so for that, I'm supporting this letter.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the letter of opposition is hereby approved. 15, comments and input from attending citizens.
We have one this evening, Mr. President. Accidentally packed it away. John Valveris.
Oh, very nice. Have you been here all night, John?
I have. John Varveris, 21084, and I thought it'd be appropriate to end with thank you to the council for a lot of things, the data warehouse, this vote you just had as well on the Chamberton Solar, but also specifically for me, and I represent 1,800 petitioners to stop the Chrome Hill Solar project, and also to thank 3 of you for coming out to our home and to actually view the site, including Council President, as well as Council Vice President, as well as Councilman Riley. So thank you all very much. We're looking forward. Also found out today that, or yesterday, that the County Council's office, as well as the County Executive's office, as well as the council, will be combining, forming a special group to kind of pursue the solar, the battery storage, as well as the data warehouse issues with legal outside counsel. So appreciate that, and we're looking forward to working with them, with our council, so that we can work on, focus on the right things together. So again, just thank you for everything you're doing in support of the citizens in these communities.
Thank you, John.
All right.
That's it?
There are no more speakers.
Yay. 16, business for council members. Mr. Bennett.
Hello, good evening, good to be with everyone this evening. I'm gonna cut out the things that I've been to, and I hope that you just trust that I've been places. But I do want to highlight a few things coming up. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., the Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics will kick off from the Lock House Museum in Havre Grace. And I'm very excited to participate in that. I know the Havre Grace Police Department is selling T-shirts to support Special Olympics. So if you would like to support Special Olympics, I know the Havre Grace Police Department is a continual, steadfast supporter of Special Olympics in many ways. And so I just encourage you to support that. Abingdon Belcamp Perryman Community Advisory Board meeting will be this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Abingdon Fire Company. I encourage people to come out to that. And then there are many, many Juneteenth events happening over the weekend and into next week, with June 19th coming up. The Upper Bay Juneteenth Festival will be happening all weekend, and the festival will take place Saturday from noon to 6 p.m. at the Hosanna School Museum in Darlington. On top of all that, early voting starts this week, starting Thursday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I encourage people to vote early. You know, I know many people who are steadfast on voting on election day, but you never know when your car is going to break down or when you're going to get sick or when a family emergency is going to come up. So it's nice to get that task out of the way so you don't miss it. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Ms. Robert?
Thank you. I'm just going to mention events this weekend, and I too will be attending the Special Olympics Torch at 7 a.m. But this Saturday at Harford Square is going to be a National Flag Day of USA at 10 a.m. It's going to be a special ceremony there. And in the evening, same location at Harford Square, we're having our first family movie night. In honor of America 250, the movie will be Independence Day, and that will start at 6 p.m. You just need to bring a chair, and there will be free complimentary refreshments. And then I was going to mention Upper Bay Juneteenth Festival, which is all weekend from June 12th to June 14th at the Hosanna School. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. Ms. Imhoff?
I just want to give a special congratulations to the Harford Academy graduate this year. Several of us were able to attend the Harford Academy graduation, and it was a remarkable experience. I was also able to attend the Harford County Public Library Summer Reading Program kickoff today. Harford County Public Library Summer Reading Program's theme this year is Unearth a Story. It runs from June 1st to August 15th. And so they have a whole bunch of Jurassic Park decorations all over the place. Some of it, little ones might not get, but adults will understand with some of like their props and everything. What I found to be both humorous and slightly offensive, but I really appreciated, was they have a technology fossils set up, which included things like tube TVs, weather radios, DVD players, and VHS players, which I just thought was a really cute play on the fossil theme. As Councilman Bennett shared, the Abington-Emerton Community Advisory Board will be meeting this Thursday, June 11th at 6:30 at the Abington Fire Department. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Imhoff. Mr. Giangiordano.
Thank you, Council President. So I'm glad we banned data centers. I am disappointed, though, that we haven't banned solar farms that we tried to ban, well, not ban, but we turned down a solar farm back in 2019, Fielder's property on 136 and 543, and it wound up getting built. And now, all of a sudden, all around the county, we've got farms that are being turned into solar fields, and some, we just had a meeting for that solar project. It winds up being 5 megawatts, but not 5 megawatts in continuous. It's broken up in 3 little parcels, so it's easier for them to get through. I wish our other delegates from Harford County would do something down in Annapolis, the 2 Johnsons, Mary Delaney James, or otherwise we're gonna have our entire county be solar farms. Anywhere where they can stick a solar farm, they're gonna put a solar farm, and the generation that does isn't gonna solve our problem in the long haul. And so I'm really disappointed that Annapolis hasn't done more than that. Maybe they're gonna look at the data centers and do something. And same thing with the battery storage facilities. They're dangerous. If they catch fire, they're gonna burn forever. There's no way to put them out. They'll pollute our water system. So, we need Annapolis to do better. Everybody was on board with the data centers, but I still didn't hear from any of the other delegates down there for that. So that's definitely disappointed. Attended Harford Leadership. My legislative aide graduated, Joanne, so congratulations, Joanne, for that. It's a great program. If you get a chance to do that, please do that. I know Council President, myself, me, I think Councilman Riley, did either one of you guys do Harford Leadership Academy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cecil. Okay, Cecil. Well, it's a great thing to do, so if you get a chance to do that. Boot Barn opened up. They don't have any boots that fit my wide feet, so I don't know where I'm going to go get boots at. But Bel Air Market is on June 14th. The summer concerts here at Shamrock Park at 7 p.m. is June 14th, and June 19th is summer movie night at Shamrock Park that kicks off, and I think I'm done. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Mr. Riley.
Yes, I want to send out congratulations to Lisa's Lavender in Jarrettsville. They celebrated their grand opening on Friday. Had the privilege of attending. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to close the night out with a quote. The best leader is the one who has sense enough to pick good people to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint to keep from meddling with them while they do it. Far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Do what you can with what you have where you are. Get action, be sane. Don't fritter your time creating things for the rest of us to clean up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saddles. 17, business from the president. I told my legislative aide this morning that I wasn't going to comment on anything, that I figured the public hearings would take up enough time that I wouldn't say anything. But Ms. Imhoff hit on the Harford Academy graduation. Just one graduate, and second time in their history that they had just one graduate. But that young lady was amazing. She truly was. And it's worth mentioning again. And then also FutureLink at the college as well. So just really appreciate the fact that at this point, at this stage, the data center conversation is over. Clearly, there will be no data centers in Harford County at this point, not authorized by Harford County for sure. So we're moving forward. We'll see where it goes and be done with it. And with that, we'll adjourn this meeting.